Long ago, Hagoromo, the sage of the six paths, made a prophecy that stated that a warrior would arise from the tailed beast and save the world from evil. The prophecy was never shared with anyone. It lived and died with Hagoromo. However, it was relived with Naruto, born son of the tailed beasts. More specifically, Naruto is son to Kurama the Nine-Tailed and Matatabi the Two-Tailed. Naruto was born a while before the canon time that we are used to, at a time where all nine-tailed beasts were gathered together and lived together. It was a time of peace, but shortly after Naruto's born, war broke out, and the tailed beasts were used as weapons of mass destruction and more, to subjugate and terrorize the people, especially those who had no shinobi powers. Naruto luckily, however, had a few years to live with the tailed beasts, mostly with his mother and father Matatabi and Kurama, but shortly after he was born, he also got the blessing of all the other tailed beasts. Of course, Shukaku was the most stubborn one of them all, but slowly but surely, all of them seemed to have a closer connection through Naruto, and he became like a child to them all. Some treated him as their nephew, some as a little brother, but he became part of the family and part of the tailed beasts. Naruto now had at least a little bit of all of the tailed beast chakra, and therefore he seemed to have some part of the Sage of Six Paths chakra, as he was the creator of the tailed beast, and combining all of those got Naruto even just a little closer to what he knew as his grandfather. However, he never got to meet him. Then, as previously mentioned, war broke out, and the tailed beasts were ripped from another and used in combat. First, only one or two of them, then more and more. And then Naruto seemed to be all alone, until Kurama was the last one to leave, being used as Madara's weapon against Hashirama and the Leaf Village. Madara being one of the most fearsome shinobi and warriors at the time, only matched in power by Hashirama, the founder of the Leaf Village. Naruto, however, went into a deep slumber for a very long time, as he was still rather young, at only the age of 5 years old. Being left alone with no family, he slept and continued to sleep for a very long time. First, it was days, then weeks, then months, and even years passed before Naruto would wake up. All of the tailed beasts were distributed between the 5 main shinobi villages, and scattered across the world. When Naruto woke up, he seemed to be in the middle of nowhere, and had only his instincts to go by, so he tried to sense for his parents or any of the tailed beasts. The closest one being his father, Kurama, who was not more than a few days of walking away. His chakra, of course, being the biggest and strongest, he was the easiest to sense, and he was the closest as well, so that was really good, and came in favor for Naruto. So he slowly but surely walked towards Kurama's chakra signature, which seemed to be in 2 different vessels, or if anything, even more. Now Naruto at this point is basically a small version of Kurama, is what his looks are like, and with a little bit of flames from Matatabi, and more of a purplish color, as that's what happens when blue and Kurama's reddish-orange mix. But he's really cute. However, he knows that going into a human territory, he would have to change his appearance, as he would be persecuted. He thinks of a disguise that he can make, perhaps use some leaves to make a hat or something like that, as he is able to walk on 2 feet like a human, which he thinks is already pretty good for this disguise, but it wouldn't be enough. So there seemed to be a click in his brain. Later, he would find out that this was Hagoromo, giving almost like a blessing to Naruto, his grandson, to enable his way for his actual life to truly begin. Hagoromo had been watching over Naruto as he still had his chakra apparition, almost like a ghost, watch over the planet, the Earth, and the shinobi villages. So Hagoromo enabled Naruto to change into a demi-human form. This is also made easier with Naruto having some more of Hagoromo's chakra, as once again, the Tailed Beast's chakra all mix into Hagoromo and kind of the Ten Tails, but a lot of Hagoromo's chakra, as he made the Tailed Beast. So Naruto is a little more like Hagoromo than a single-tailed beast would be. So now his looks are more like a canon Naruto, with his head that of a normal human, his ears still with a little fur on them, and his hair is kind of like Kurama's orange or red, but more of a darker color. However, his hands and feet are that of normal humans, so he won't be noticed or stand out that much. So if he wears a hat, for example, he should be more than fine and not stand out at all. Naruto makes his way to the human territory where he sensed his father, and arrives about 3 days later. There he sees a huge wall, a clear barrier between the wildlife, the forest, and the village he saw in front of him. He walked through the gate, though was questioned by 2 guards. He wasn't sure exactly how to communicate, as the tailed beasts had more of a paranormal way of communicating, as they were able to talk with their minds instead of having to open their mouths like normal humans. They could redirect their thoughts into other people's minds, including the other tailed beasts. So Naruto never had any experience with talking, though for some reason he was able to understand the guards and their human language, and signaled that he was not from around here. They were a little curious about where he had come from, as there's not really any village for at least a few days away, so it was very suspect. They brought him to the Hokage, and everything seemed fine. Important message, the Hokage is actually Minato, the 4th Hokage who currently is still alive. Yes, the Nine-Tails attack did happen over 5 years ago, but Minato survived it. You're wondering how? Well, I got the answer for you. Well, Hagoromo played a big role in it, as he saw that Kurama was gonna be used to attack many of Hagoromo's descendants, including the Uchiha and Hyuga clan, and then later even be used to make the Ten Tails once more, as Hagoromo has an ability to somewhat look into the future. Not completely, but he can predict very accurately what happens, and he saw Kaguya being revived. And he did not want that to happen, as he didn't know of anyone that could actually beat her, or even beat the Ten Tails alone. So he actually helped in sealing Kurama into Minato, but Minato actually split Kurama, or rather was going to, until Hagoromo did it for him. He helped basically revive Kushina as she was on the brink of death, and then led the chakra of the Nine-Tails into a young boy, the son that was just born to Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. Of course, a tiny bit of the Nine-Tails chakra had to be put back into Kushina for her to survive long term and not just a few hours, but a lot of it was put into Minato's son. However, he also took a little bit of it as he didn't want to put too much burden on his son. So everybody survived, and then that day would be known as the day of the Nine-Tails attack, where the 4th Hokage's son was made into a Jinchuriki and was even born in the first place. Naruto didn't explain much, though he did say that he was from basically the forest, from the wilderness, and seeked refuge inside the village. Minato was a little bit suspect of Naruto as he did have quite a bit of chakra. We're talking a lot of chakra, as Naruto didn't really know how to suppress it at the time. So Minato thought that it was a trap or somebody pretending to be a young boy, but Naruto seemed to be sincere and honest and very innocent, which is why he was allowed to stay in the Leaf Village. After being granted a temporary apartment for now, Naruto lived in the Leaf Village for a few days, always tracking his father's chakra until one day he met his father, or rather his Jinchuriki, on the street. They faced each other off, as Naruto was alone, now starting to cry, begging for his father, whilst Minato's son was with his friends, about to go to a playground. His name was Mitsumori Namikaze, the 4th Hokage's son. As Naruto and Mitsumori were now staring at each other into their eyes, Mitsumori not knowing what was going on, and had never even met Naruto in the first place. By the way, Naruto is just called Naruto to keep it canon, and the name was given by Kurama, the nine-tailed beast, even through the many seals that were put onto his control of the Jinchuriki, was able to push through due to his strong emotions and love for his son. And Mitsumori's eyes changed into red slit-like eyes, and his voice changed to a deep tone. "Hello there, my son. I'm so happy to finally see you once more. It has been quite a while, for me at least." As Mitsumori now started crying, though really it was just Kurama, and Naruto continued to cry as well. "I miss you so much." Naruto started whining, and Mitsumori's friends were really confused. "Naruto, my child, you should not tell anyone that you're my son for now, and only reveal it to the ones you trust. But even then, be careful, as people might try to hunt you down or capture you for military gain. So just be careful, please. I'll try to stay by your side as much as possible, and I hope that you're able to become friends with the one who became my Jinchuriki, as well as his father, who is the leader of this village. And I truly hope that you meet the others too, especially your mother. We have both been hoping for the day that we see you again for many, many years now." Naruto stopped crying and now seemed happy. He gained hope and wanted to befriend the villagers and the people inside, even though, yes, they had done much harm to the tailed beast, especially his father. So he was gonna befriend them, love them all, and be the bridge between tailed beast and humans, monsters and villagers, and hopefully strive and fight and long for peace that hadn't been seen in the world for many, many years. So now Kurama let control of his body over to Mitsumori again, and nothing seemed to change. Naruto went into a neutral, emotional state once more, and it's as if this interaction never happened. Though Naruto tried to integrate himself into Mitsumori's friend group, and they became rather close. Minato of course knew this, and Naruto became somewhat known amongst the villagers. Not as anything bad, but not really as anything good either. He was basically an outsider. He was just known as an orphan. However, he was friends with the Hokage's kid, which is at least something. Now we'll skip over 3 years, as it is now time to enter the academy to become a shinobi and fight for what's right. It's been Naruto's dream ever since he entered the Leaf Village, which is why he has actually started somewhat training. Of course, he has incredible chakra potential, and so he started trying to control some of it. At first, doing anything, even as basic as trying to tree walk, he broke an entire tree as there was simply too much chakra for him to handle. But after a few weeks, he was able to control his chakra. However, this chakra control of his seemed to move over to basically anything that he did, so whilst it did take quite a while to learn a basic skill like tree walking, once he learned it, he was basically a master of it, which was definitely an upside. So, once he learned something, he was very, very good at it. So he just had to take his time, and he would be much better than everyone else. Now Naruto entered the academy, as he was seen off by Minato, who he had come to see as his human father, as Minato did like Naruto as well. They of course by now knew that Naruto seemed to be not quite human, and did have animal-like features, but they never dared to ask, and Naruto didn't share anyways, so they didn't really care about it though. Naruto and Mitsumori entered the academy, as they sat by each other, along with Sasuke. Those three were the most popular three boys, and at least in the eyes of the girls in the class, the most prettiest too. They would now be having their power assessed. The Chunin teachers did this in a way where each of the Genin students, or rather aspiring to become Genin students, academy students, would spar against each other and fight. Not to harm each other, not to death, just a sparring match for the proctors, which in this case are the teachers, just for them to see how strong the students are. They would try to make somewhat even matches so it's not too unfair. The thing was that the list of names was alphabetically, so Naruto was pretty much in the exact middle, with his first name starting with N. As he doesn't really have a last name, he just goes by Naruto. The one on the list after Naruto is Mitsumori, and since they are said to have somewhat equal power, they were actually put against each other. So their match began, and everyone was excited to see the son of the Hokage and a very powerful outsider, not from this place, fight against each other. The match started, but Naruto didn't move at all. He started smirking, and let his hair flow through the wind. This exposed Naruto's somewhat animal features, which was a little bit surprising for most people. Of course, Mitsumori was aware of them, but as previously mentioned, they weren't really ever talked about and they weren't a big thing. However, Mitsumori then engaged in the fight as he ran towards Naruto with a kunai in his hand. Naruto easily blocked the kunai with a single hand, and then tried to punch Mitsumori in the stomach, though he tanked the shot and continued to try to hit Naruto. Naruto had the clear advantage in this fight, and had a fighting instinct that was handed down from his family. Also, his taijutsu and chakra capabilities, as in potential, are out of this world. Quite literally. So, with a little bit of hassle, Naruto did win this fight pretty easily though, as he just continued to, every few punches, hit Mitsumori once, and then, after a minute of fighting, Mitsumori went down. Not knocked out, but she gave up as this fight seemed hopeless. Everyone was really in awe. Mitsumori wasn't that much of a weak fighter. He was actually pretty strong. Now, of course, he hadn't done anything crazy like done a year's worth of training with the Hokage, but he's not too weak. He's definitely in the top 3 strongest in the entire class. So if Naruto could beat him that easily, they didn't even comprehend what he could do with more training in the future. Now, of course, he hadn't done anything crazy like done a year's worth of training with the Hokage, but he's not too weak. He's definitely in the top 3 strongest in the entire class. So if Naruto could beat him that easily, they didn't even comprehend what he could do with more training in the future. Now with Sasuke, who is fighting with Kiba, who kept bragging that he's the class strongest and actually will become the strongest in the village and even become Hokage, though after a few blows, it was pretty obvious that that was just full of crap, and Kiba was definitely not the strongest in the class, and nowhere near that. Probably closer to the weakest in the class. But anyways, a little more fights and that would conclude the assessment of their strength. The teachers were very happy as they did see some promising candidates for the year and the years to come. Now, over this time, there would be a trio dynamic between Sasuke, Mitsumori, and Naruto, building up as the three of them became the powerhouses of the class, as well as the most popular with the girls and even with the boys. Naruto's proficiency was mostly chakra, though his taijutsu was also not bad. Meanwhile, Sasuke was pretty good in doing genjutsu, as that's his clan's mastery, especially when he unlocked the Sharingan later on, though not for now. Meanwhile, Mitsumori started learning a few tricks here and there from Kushina and Minato himself, the fourth Hokage, which greatly increased his quest for strength and speed. Of course, his taijutsu wasn't as good as his father's, as chakra mastery or seal mastery not as good as his mother's for now, but he did have a lot of chakra potential, as he is half Uzumaki and has quite a bit of the Nine Tails chakra. So, if he was willing to take time and control it and master it, he would be a very fearsome shinobi. So, a few months pass, and at this point, they're now 9 years old and have had about half a year of life in the academy, or rather, as an academy student. It seems like it's never been better than the time now, especially for Naruto, who's enjoyed making a lot of friends and becoming more powerful, as his goal is to become such a powerful shinobi that he can visit all of his family, all the tailed beasts, and perhaps try to free them from the discrimination of humans, if he ever gets to that point. But for now, his main mission is to see his mother again, who he had learned from Kurama seemed to be trapped in the land of water. Now at this point, Naruto had more motivation than ever to become stronger, trained his taijutsu in the form of workout and daily jogs more than ever, and kept comparing himself and trying to be better than his friends. Of course, even more Sasuke and Mitsumori, as those three had a constant motivation to beat each other in anything they were doing and be better than the rest, as there was basically a three-way rivalry between them. However, it definitely benefited as they all became smarter and stronger through it. Now, during this time, Naruto had actually built up some feelings towards a girl. Now, he thought that there were many pretty girls in his class, though there was one in particular, and this was none other than Sasuke's sister, Shiro. She had black hair as normal in the Uchiha clan, and wore clothes that could be compared to a mixture between Ino and, believe it or not, Shisui, as well as a little bit of Itachi. Her dream was to have a short sword by her side, but instead of like Shisui having it on the back, she wanted to have it on her waist that she could grab it at any point in time without having to turn that much. She had ninja tape around her arms up to the bottom of her thumbs. However, Naruto could not bring himself to confess his feelings, as he saw her almost every day, sometimes even outside the academy. For example, whenever he went over to Sasuke's to play or really do anything. Of course, Mitsumori was also there, but that doesn't really matter. So for now, a few more years passed, as they were now about to finish their academy life and become an actual Genin. After 4 years of hard work and training, they'd gotten to a very high level of skill in everything they attempted. So now all they had to do to prove that they were ready to become actual Genin is to pass very easy exams. They started out by shuriken throwing, which was really easy, as all of them had at least a score of 300, a bullseye being worth 100 points, but they had 5 kunai to throw. So getting a score of 300 is really good, especially for such young kids, as that's even a score that wouldn't be too shabby for some Chunin to get. Then they needed to make one clone jutsu, as it didn't really matter what clone jutsu, as Naruto did a blue flame style clone jutsu, which was a little bit of a Kekkei Genkai that his mother, Naruto's mother, had taught him. And it does kind of run in the family, though it was taught to him at a young age, kind of like a trick, just for fun. But now he could actually use it in pride of his mother. so he probably passed with that clone, and then there would be a third exam. Now, of course they had done the written test, which none of them liked, but they had to do. But now there was something else. They would have to fight a special guest that would come into the academy. This guest is none other than Itachi Uchiha, Sasuke and Shiro's older brother. Now, once again, this would be done alphabetically, and they would have to fight Itachi for only about 30 seconds, as this wasn't really any endurance test or really that much fighting either. They were just supposed to be able to keep up. But of course, Itachi was not going to fight seriously or anywhere near that, as he would probably destroy even the Chunin teachers at the academy. Itachi, of course, being a very strong prodigy. So then it was Naruto's turn, who came in first out of the 3-student trio. Naruto would smilingly say that he would not hold back, as Itachi and him made some distance between them after shaking hands and bowing, and then their fight commenced. Of course, Naruto already kind of knew Sasuke, his older brother Itachi, so they already had kind of some knowledge about each other, especially Itachi, who knew Naruto pretty well. Sometimes Naruto was a pretty popular theme to talk about, as he was a mysterious outsider, but he was mostly welcomed inside the village, so it was fine. Anyways, their fight started, and as soon as it was declared to begin, Naruto jumped in and struck Itachi in the nose, trying to get a dirty hit on him first, and then immediately went for a punch on the stomach, though Itachi jumped to the side and tried to elbow Naruto in the face. Naruto did a flip above Itachi, so now their backs were facing each other. Itachi used a simple clone jutsu to try to confuse Naruto, though he easily looked through it. Naruto was using a special technique that he had developed for his own fighting style, which was basically using his chakra to encase his physical body in chakra and make it stronger and faster. This was kind of like a chakra cloak, but of course a much weaker version than we know of from the tailed beast chakra cloak. But he would have the power to do so in the future. For now, it was a weaker version of the chakra cloak. However, for now, this was all he had, but it was sufficient. His power increased more than 3-fold as his speed did too, and now his fight with Itachi was unlike anything the previous wannabe Genins had ever seen before, especially anything that they'd ever been able to accomplish themselves. Naruto jumped up and down to be able to fight face to face with Itachi, and he did it so fast that for some time it felt like and looked like Naruto was floating and flying across the battlefield as they jumped around a lot during the fight. Now their fight was already exceeding 30 seconds, so Itachi knew that Naruto would already pass, and at this point Itachi used some more force to see how far Naruto would be willing to go. Now Naruto would be getting pushed to the back, as with every punch Itachi landed on him, there would be a small scrape on Naruto's body, which was slowly wearing him out. But before anything else happened, the proctors of the match ended it, saying that Naruto passed the exam and did very, very well. Of course, Itachi wasn't going to hurt Naruto, but he was curious. So they'd probably have to finish their fight some other time. Now, all the tests were done, and when everybody finished their last test, they all got their official village-issued ninja headbands to symbolize and prove that they were at least on the level of a Genin and would likely upgrade their ranks very, very soon. The trio of academy students, especially, were yelling and were super excited and happy to finally become Genin, and were even hoping to get on the same team, though they knew that it'd be pretty unlikely, as there's usually, basically always, at least one girl on a Genin team, and then 2 boys. However, they were also excited to see who their sensei would be, as of course they were hoping for Itachi, as they knew him and he was really nice and a good teacher, but they knew it wasn't going to happen, as Itachi was not the kind of guy that would be a teacher, and, well, he wasn't volunteering to be a teacher anyways. By the way, I should mention this, there is an important thing that happened, or rather did not happen, and that was of course the sad and lonely night of the Uchiha Massacre. Now the reason this didn't happen is of course once again because Minato Namikaze is alive, as well as of course Kushina. This led to less of an issue between Konoha, well the village, and the villagers, and the Uchiha clan, as well as Minato being cool-headed and friends with a lot of the Uchiha, being able to solve the issue or resolve it, at least over the course of a few years. So a lot of the Uchiha were actually welcomed back, though some of them stayed back behind in the Uchiha compound in the old one that was at the edge of the village. Not because they felt threatened or hated, though of course some old ones did. But for example, Sasuke's family, which were the clan leaders, or rather Fugaku's father was the clan leader, he wanted to stay in the Uchiha compound as a symbol for any Uchiha who was quote-unquote lost, for them to find a home in the Uchiha compound. But most important thing, the Uchiha Massacre did not happen. Anyways, now Naruto and the rest of his class were sitting in the classroom and the next day, awaiting for instructions, and to finally meet their Jonin sensei, as well as get to know who their Genin team would be. Naruto was one of the ones waiting the longest, as some other Genin already left, and then some more, and then some more. Now finally, their sensei came into the room, as T7 stood up as they were the last ones, still there, and then they saw a white-haired man, this being Kakashi. Kakashi simply told the three to get to the roof, and then they did. The three in this case being the regular Sasuke, Naruto, and of course, our beloved Sakura. They went to the roof, Uchiha, Sasuke, and Naruto being the fastest one, having a competition about everything. They of course wanted to compete in who could get to the roof fastest, but Sakura took a more chill route and just went up the stairs like a normal person. So then once Sakura came up to the roof, everyone was there, and Kakashi decided to go through a round of telling everyone who they were and what their goals and likes and dislikes are. First it was Sasuke's turn, who said that she likes Naruto, but she wants to prove that he's stronger than him. His goal is to be a strong fighter for the village and to protect his family as well as his friends. Sakura said, I like, whilst looking at the two boys in front of her, and I don't have any dislikes. Sakura's introduction was brief and not really much info, but I think you get what I mean. And then it was Naruto's turn, who just said that he wanted to become a strong shinobi too, and he didn't really have any goals. He just wanted to be powerful, and of course wanted to be better and stronger than everyone else, including his friends. And did actually mention, kind of on the side, that he did want to be Hokage, as it was one of his goals, but it wasn't his only goal of life. You know what I mean? And of course, he couldn't say that he wanted to visit all the tailed beasts and free them, because, well, that'd be kind of weird. Kakashi didn't talk about his goals except for just mentioning his name. He told them that on the next day they would have a small exam to test out if they could actually function properly, and then the bell test was briefly explained, and the next morning arrived. They were told not to eat, but Naruto, always being hungry, ate Ichiraku ramen on the way. Then all of them arrived, but of course they had to wait for Kakashi once more. When he arrived, it was all well and done, and the small exam should now begin. Kakashi had 2 belts, and he said that they would have to get one of them to pass. Of course, it was an obvious flaw in this, as there was only 3 people for 2 belts to get. When the exam officially began, instead of rushing in, Naruto told them that they should make a strategy, and Sasuke, of course, first wanted to get the bell, but realized that Naruto was right, and without making an actual strategy, they had no chance of beating Jonin, and even then it would make sense if only 2 of them passed, as there's always 3 people in a Genin team. So then, quietly, they made a somewhat rough plan, and they'll just kind of make it up as they go and try to assist each other in getting a belt. When this happened, Sasuke turned on his Sharingan, and then Naruto just kind of riled up his chakra to begin the fight. Of course, excitement started to become the main emotion they felt, and so their power did kind of increase with that, as their total control kind of diminished, and in that their true power came out without them even wanting to. Kakashi immediately noticed that Naruto had insane chakra potential and control, and any jutsu that he did was insanely large and could do some serious damage. Naruto was pretty good in all elements of chakra, or rather chakra natures, but the most he practiced was fire, earth, and water. His fireball jutsu was bigger than Itachi's was at his age. He could do things like the water style water dragon jutsu with no issue, and his hand signs were weaved incredibly fast, as if he actually had a Sharingan of his own, even though he clearly didn't. This was once again his supreme genetics coming into play, but of course he didn't just lay around, he did actually work for his success too. Then Sasuke went in for close hand combat, as the Sharingan was basically made for that, and Kakashi knew that he couldn't do any jutsu, as Sasuke would simply copy them without issue. Now at this point, Sakura was kind of left out and she didn't know what to do, so she just kind of rushed in and tried to make the best of it. She didn't do that great, but she did well in distracting Kakashi enough for Sasuke to go in and punch Kakashi across the face. Meanwhile, Naruto did another water-style jutsu, now actually trapping Kakashi in a prison, a water-style prison. However, Naruto did it in a way that Kakashi was actually slowly drowning and knew he had to do something. At this point, Kakashi was not going to play around anymore. 1 second he was in the prison, the next he was standing behind Sasuke about to hit him in the back, but then Naruto quickly tried to hit Kakashi in the stomach, though he did a flip above Naruto, knocking him back with his elbow. Now the fight was on, as Kakashi was now using his Sharingan and his full potential. By the way, if you're wondering how Kakashi was able to escape from the water-style prison, Naruto could do it well, but not as well as Zabuza, so yeah. Anyways, now their fight ensued, with Naruto and Sasuke both using their close-hand combat skills and knowledge of martial arts to fight Kakashi, and it was an interesting battle. Every now and then, Naruto tried to do some jutsu, though he had to be very, very careful, as Sasuke had to distract him in the meantime, else Kakashi would simply copy Naruto's jutsu, and perhaps even make it stronger than Naruto was able to do. At this point, Naruto decided to make some clones to try to distract Kakashi and somehow get hits on him that he didn't expect, but that wasn't going as planned. Now Sakura, who had been kind of observing the battle, then came up from behind, and Kakashi was simultaneously being punched from 3 different directions, but then used the substitution jutsu. Now at this point, Team 7 did not know what they should do, as they were already trying to get the belts, but somehow were still failing miserably. However, they were actually much closer than they thought they were, as Kakashi was actually being pushed into a corner, and the substitution jutsu was his last straw. However, he then ended the exam, saying that the main test of this exam was actually just to see if they could work as a team, and they did that very well, using teamwork to almost beat arguably the second or even the strongest Jonin in all of Konoha. Depends on how you look at it. But however you look at it, you can't deny Kakashi is a very strong Jonin, and Team 7, now just starting to become Genin, already almost beat them. Very powerful. Anyways, now they would continue their missions, or rather begin them in the first place, as they'd never really had any missions. First, they started out with basic chores, aka D-rank missions. as they weren't actual shinobi missions, they're more like what had to be done around the village. Some was cleaning up at a farm, helping deliver some goods, or even just catching lost cats. There was none actual work, or rather shinobi duties, at least in the eyes of Naruto, as none of this required any of the skills they gathered, for example, fighting or chakra control. They used none of that. The only thing they used sometimes was teamwork. But then again, if they were fast enough and had time, they could have done it alone. So, pretty bad. Naruto and Sasuke at the same time demanded a more difficult mission, as Minato agreed and gave them one. This was to escort Tazuna the bridge builder, who needed help in getting to his small village and build a bridge there. He looked somewhat disappointed in the team he got to escort him, but soon would find out that they were actually much more powerful than they looked. First, whilst walking, Naruto saw a puddle which immediately he threw a fireball jutsu at, and two people jumped out and started to attack Naruto. However, he single-handedly smashed one of them to the ground, putting his open palm on the guy's nose, or rather spreading it out through his face, and smashing his face down to the ground like an absolute pro, and then hitting the other guy, in the stomach so hard that he passed out. Those two were easily dealt with two attacks that weren't even that hard. Even Kakashi was surprised, as yeah, his opponents weren't that strong, but then again, they were too chunin. So this was a very good effort from Naruto, especially dealing with them so fast and even noticing them in the first place, as they were hiding themselves with genjutsu and suppressing their presence. Now their mission continued, as they finally arrived in the Land of Waves, but before they could get to Tazuna's home, a shinobi, as well as his partner in crime, attacked them, or rather intervened in their mission, as they were just mercenaries, one being Zabuza Momochi, ordered from Gato to destroy Team 7, or rather mostly just to disrupt Tazuna and eliminate him. So Zabuza immediately throws his sword when he sees T7. All of them duck except for Naruto, who jumps above the blade, showing a sign of superiority. Then he runs back trying to retrieve the blade, as he picks it up from the tree that it was stuck in. Before Zabuza could grab it, now Naruto has it in his hand. It's way too big for Naruto to handle, as it's quite literally more than twice Naruto's body height, and so is very unpractical. Still, Naruto, just for fun, wants to defeat his opponent with his opponent's weapon, so he rushes in with a huge sword. However, at this point, Zabuza uses a water-style jutsu to try to just take care of the Genin and then actually fight the Jonin, which would actually be a battle for him. However, he greatly underestimated the Genin, and at this point, Naruto once again does the water-style dragon jutsu, as using any fire technique would not work against water, and earth in this situation just wouldn't be that great. However, at the same time, Sasuke actually rushed him from the side and threw a kunai at Zabuza's head and kicked him on the side, and almost breaking a rib if Zabuza didn't block the attack. But then Naruto appears right in front of his face once again, almost floating above the ground for a second as he's just so fast, and uses a fist punch that was enhanced with earth chakra to make it almost like a rock hitting you, but with the force of a mountain. And Naruto does have his physical skills increased with his chakra cloak, which once again he made himself. It's not any actual tailpiece chakra cloak, but it's rather just his chakra spread across his body, used to make him faster and powerful. Now Kakashi actually moved in, as he saw that Zabuza was a strong opponent, and that even if they didn't really need his help, it would be good if he did actually help. Meanwhile, Sakura stayed and defended Tazuna in case a different shinobi or rogue nin, whatever you want to call them, tried to attack him. Now, the three shinobi, two genin and one jonin, took quick care of Zabuza and had him almost defeated when Haku, who identified himself as a tracking ninja, threw medical needles at Zabuza, making him seem dead. However, he was not completely dead. But Team 7 would realize too late, as Haku had already taken Zabuza and left. They knew Zabuza was still alive, though weakened, so he probably wouldn't attack right now. Kakashi would not have any setbacks from the Sharingan, as he didn't have to use or rely on it. So Team 7 was fit, while Zabuza did take some damage. Tazuna is very impressed with the Geni team that he was assigned, and sees their strength and power, as well as potential for the future. He lets them stay in his house, as Kakashi and him decide what to do with the mission, as this is not what they signed up for. But Naruto and Sasuke both really want to do this mission, as Kakashi saw that they are able to do it. They do have the strength, but then, well, what would go on the records? They'd have to see. For now, they'd complete the mission, as Tazuna asked of them. So now, Team 7 was able to train a little bit, as Kakashi wanted to teach them how to tree walk, but of course Sasuke and Naruto had already mastered this technique, as only Sakura had to practice it. Naruto did some meditation and physical training, more of basics, like just basic push-ups, but also practiced to enhance his chakra cloak, as it would be very useful for the future. Sasuke wasn't sure what to do at first, but then tried to imitate Naruto, did some physical training, but then once again went back to chakra control, as he could improve it slightly, and actually practiced controlling the chakra towards his eyes, and using his eyes' abilities. And then Naruto and Sasuke did spar a little bit, and then the time was already over. Now they actually had to do their mission and guard Tazuna. It went pretty normal for the first few days, until the last one where they're about to finish the mission. Zabuza and Haku arrived once more, as they were ready for round 2. Naruto and Sasuke weren't gonna talk around and wait for them to do the first move, so they immediately rushed in, as they discussed earlier. Sasuke immediately activating his Sharingan, and Naruto his chakra cloak, both increasing in speed, and their hand-to-hand combat was phenomenal. They worked very well as a team together, as they did actually spar together against Kakashi in a 2v1, which increased their teamwork abilities. Zabuza was easily outmatched by those two, but before Haku could help, Kakashi went in and started fighting Haku. He wasn't that hard of an opponent, much weaker than Zabuza, so Haku was easily defeated by Kakashi, and then he went in to help the two boys fight Zabuza. But then they also defeated him, and, well, eliminated both of them. Then, Gato and his men arrived, as it was the last straw to defending Gato's empire and stopping the village from trading with others and actually becoming independent from Gato's rule. So he hired as many mercenaries and assassins, as well as rogue ninjas, as he could to try to stop Team 7 from helping and defending the village. But Naruto, Sasuke, and Kakashi were too good of a team. Sasuke and Naruto took 2/3 of the rogue ninjas, Kakashi taking the rest, and then the three of them kind of started fighting together, as they defeating the shinobi very quickly, and in the end, Kakashi dealt the finishing blow to Gato himself, now freeing the village and making it independent. The bridge was finally finished to build, and the village could once again trade with others. The mission was a success. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura got their first B-ranked mission, as it was ranked at that, though it was actually more of a B+. But, well, just a B on the record books. But that was okay, as it was better than they could have asked for, and it was a very fun mission. So then they got back to Konoha and got told by Kakashi that there would soon be Chunin exams to rank up further than Genin to the next rank, which is Chu. Naruto, as well as Team 7, saw the third Hokage's grandson, Hiruzen's grandson, being harassed by an older boy that seemed to be their age, if not even older. Konohamaru was being harassed by Kankarot from the hidden sand. Naruto immediately rushed over there and tried to disperse the situation, but Kankarot was not having it. He seemed to be angry at Kankarot because of that, but then silence struck as Gaara jumped up from the tree that he was relaxing in. Naruto's face turned to Gaara as a tear shed down his face. Shukaku. It's you, isn't it? As Gaara's eyes turned slit-like, and Gaara as well indeed started crying. As Naruto and Gaara were having a conversation together in their minds through telepathy, so no one else would disturb them. Kankarot and Temari were in pure shock, as Gaara had never been the kind of guy to show emotions, and he was so, quote-unquote, weird that he didn't even sleep. His one and only character trait was the fact that he was the one-tailed Jinchuriki, and it basically consumed him. It was a big part of him, and made a lot of things difficult for him, but enabled others like his fighting style and sand control. Without the tailed beast, he would be a completely different person. And this, they'd never seen or expected. Konohamaru now started yelling that Naruto was siding with the enemies, but then Naruto snapped back to reality, wiped the tear off his face, and told Konohamaru that it was alright. Naruto and Gaara both started heading towards different directions as they parted ways, and would only see each other once again during the exams for the rank of Chunin. Konohamaru went along with Naruto, and of course, Gaara's siblings, Kankarot and Temari, went along with him. Then Naruto got back to his team, as then he told Konohamaru to leave, go back to wherever he came from, and then Team 7 was actually going to go to the Chunin exams. Well, of course, they still have a little bit of time, but that would then pursue. Boom, now we're at the day of the Chunin exams, and everyone is ready to give it their all. Naruto is walking at the front, Sakura, Sasuke a little bit in the back to either side, making almost a triangle shape with their heads and bodies. And at this point, Naruto looks chill. He has both his hands behind his head, walking as if he's laying down, if you know what I mean. Sasuke has a look of superiority, and Sakura, well, she just thinks that those two are very, very strong, as they are. As Naruto has not even shown his true power yet, and he's already extremely powerful. They easily, or rather, Naruto easily looks through the Genjutsu, as he politely asks Sasuke to disperse it, and then they move on. Then they seem to be challenged by two people. Neji is giving Sasuke an angry look and wanting to fight him, and Rock Lee, his teammate, well, he just wants to fight anyone, but especially Sasuke or Naruto, as he knows of their power. He doesn't mind who, he just wants to fight. And as Neji is currently talking with Sasuke, Rock Lee goes over to Naruto. Naruto's completely uninterested and says, "Yo, I'm just not in the mood. Could we do this some other time? Let's just focus on the exam for now. Would that be okay?" "Thank you so much." He didn't even wait for an answer for Rock Lee, and then he just continued moving Sakura closely behind his back, and then Sasuke catching up later. Now, a minute later, they were all ready and entered the exam room for the first exam of the Chunin exams. It was explained that it would be a written test, as Ibiki explained some of the rules, though a lot of them were actually not true. Naruto expected there to be a lie of rules, and actually did not mind anything that the instructors told him to do, and just kind of did his own thing. He answered some of the questions, of course some of them he didn't know, as they were very, very hard. Similar to Sasuke and Sakura, which also tried the same, though Sasuke struggled the most, as he's not that great at these questions. However, they did stick around for the 10th question. That was the truth of the exam, is just to see if they take the risk and actually stay for their reward. The 10th question did not matter, or rather actually completing any of the questions, it was just to see if they stick around. They did, and so they moved on to the next exam, as it began right away as Anko jumped through the window, introduced himself, and told everyone to go to the Forest of Death. Then she explained the rules as when everyone got there, and then the exam began. But not before Naruto made a silly comment about how this is going super easy right now, and then he's just gonna walk through the entire exam when Anko threw a kunai at him, and somebody behind him caught it. Now, Naruto could have caught it, but he knew that it wasn't gonna hit him at all, as he just slightly moved his face in a different direction without anyone noticing, so the kunai didn't hit him at all, and he just didn't care what happened afterwards. Then somebody else gave Anko her kunai back, as now the actual exam began, or continued, whatever. Naruto with his team, he led his team into the forest, having already one scroll, as that was what you had at the beginning of the exam, and then they were to fight another team that had a different scroll than them. They tried to look for weak teams, but knew that those teams were going to get picked off first, and they would probably have to fight a medium power team. They mostly just wanted to avoid Gaara's team, as they knew those were probably the most strongest, but also Neji and Rock Lee's team was pretty strong too. So Naruto and his team kind of hid for now. Naruto had to go to the bathroom, and then came back, but actually, it wasn't the real Naruto. It was a transformation jutsu of a different opponent, or rather, an opponent from a different village. However, Sasuke easily took care of it, as then the real Naruto came back, unhurt from any wandering snakes, if you know what I mean. But when Naruto arrived back at his two team members, before they could exchange any words, they heard a loud scream. It seemed to come from a girl southwest of them. They headed in that direction and saw Sasuke's sister, who is fighting some opponents from a different village that he didn't know of. Meanwhile, one of her teammates was on the floor with a bruise on his back, wide open, and it was bleeding all over the floor. Meanwhile, Mitsumori was also helping fighting their opponents, as yes, you heard right, Mitsumori and Sasuke's sister, Shiro, are on the same team. Well, same Genin team, if that makes sense. Sasuke immediately rushes in, not even wanting to hear a different strategy that they should try, as his sister was in danger, and his brotherly instincts took over. She immediately went in with his Sharingan activated, and started going mad, throwing kunais all over, kicking and punching like a madman. But Naruto understood Sasuke's feelings, as then he tried to help his fellow Genin, and went in with a fight as well. Naruto was a huge asset with his insane speed. He immediately took down one of the enemy Genin, and from there they were able to take out the rest easily and tie them up, and take their scroll. Mitsumori and Shiro's injured teammate was looked after by Naruto and Sakura, as Sakura of course had some basic knowledge of medical training, but Naruto actually had a little bit of training on it. I mean, number one, his chakra control was out of this world, as he was basically the child of two chakra sources. As you gotta remember, the tail beasts aren't actually alive, they're more of just chakra that took a personality. As they can die, they'll revive, there's not an issue in that. So they're not technically alive, and they were just made, if you know what I mean. So Naruto, being the son and having chakra of the all, as you gotta remember, he made pacts with them all, and is especially the children of Kurama and Matatabi. His chakra control and chakra potential is insane. So he can focus his chakra on his palm and lead it through his fellow Genin's back, and give the Genin boy healing abilities for a few seconds. As his pain mildened, the wound slowly started closing, and the Genin came to consciousness again. Now Sasuke was weirded out, but asked if his sister was okay, and she said she was fine, but was a little stressed and angry at herself. She should have done a better job and protected her teammate well, but the others tell her that it was okay, and it wasn't really her fault, especially Mitsumori, who says that he should have done more too and should have actually been there, as he seemed to be mentally unpresent that day, or rather, that moment. Naruto goes over to Shiro and does a little bit of small talk, but makes weird kind of jokes that seem inappropriate for the situation, but kind of lighten the mood. At first, Shiro is a little bit mad and confused, but kind of makes sense, and with time, she gets used to it. But after about 3 hours, they part ways again, as Team 7 wants to get a scroll, and then they could help the others to get their scroll. And if they didn't get it that day, they would come back later and stay the same, well, 2 groups together for the night, as it'd be better. For example, 2 people could always stay on the lookout for others, while the rest can sleep, instead of, well, one team being much more vulnerable. So Team 7 went out and looked for some easy scrolls to get. They found some Konoha teams which they but just passed by, as they had no interest in fighting each other and their peers that they'd grown up for around so long. However, then they saw one from the hidden mist, as they immediately went in for a fight, Naruto and Sasuke for a close range, as Naruto immediately took 2 of them out, and Sasuke the one other, the one that had the scroll. Then they got their scroll, and made their way back to the other team, which by the way, for this, I'm going to say is Team 6. So now the 2 teams, Team 6 and Team 7, got together again, as they talked some more and took care of the injured teammate of Team 6. Naruto kept talking with Mitsumori and Shiro, as they had a bond. Of course, Mitsumori and Naruto were close friends, but Shiro also had grown a little bit attached to Naruto. She'd seen him quite a few times, of course, usually when Sasuke was there, but even sometimes alone, and had actually grown to appreciate Naruto. Then, when they were almost going to sleep, the girl that caught Anku's kunai at the beginning of the exam came to Team 13 is what I'm going to call them now, because it's Team 6 and 7 together, and everyone knows that 6 plus 7 is just 7 plus 7 minus 1, which is 13. Thank you for the math lesson. Let's continue with the what if. So this girl actually started peeling off her own skin on her face with her hands, and revealed to be, instead of a young girl taking the Chunin exams, she was actually, well, he was actually Orochimaru, a middle-aged Sanin man. Quite the transformation. Orochimaru licked his lips, saying that there was so many good vessels and candidates here. And he was right about that. There was Sasuke, there was Mitsumori, there was Naruto, though he was a little bit of a mystery, and wasn't sure about that. Though, of course, Sasuke and Shiro, well, they had the Sharingan. They were good picks. Mitsumori, well, he had Uzumaki and Namikaze blood. Pretty strong genes, and pretty good training too. So, Orochimaru could just take any one of them, and he'd be more than satisfied. Even better, if he took all 3 of them, though that was a little much to ask for. So, Orochimaru insinuated a fight, and Naruto's not going to sit around and talk, as he was the one that stood up from the rock he was sitting on, and then cracked his knuckles, rasped the air with his right hand, and as he closed his hand into a fist, his aura seemed to change from neutral to a purplish tone. When he started fighting Naruto, Orochimaru was easily winning, as he was actually taking this somewhat seriously. Though still, Naruto had more power than Orochimaru thought he would, which was pretty surprising. Then Naruto, seeing that he was great, being overpowered by this weird man, he took it up a notch, made his chakra cloak even stronger, and powered up into his Biju form. Now, it's not completely a Biju form, but as he has pretty much half human, half tailed beast at this point, at least from his looks. He changed more and more into a tailed beast, now gaining 12 tails, as at first they started as faint chakra tails, but then grew more and more realistic and detailed, with a purplish color with white stripes in them, so much so that they became physically real. Naruto's power seemed to double, triple, and quadruple as it shot through the roof. He jumped forward, and his speed could not even be compared to what Orochimaru was fighting just a second ago, as a real fight now broke out. This fight, higher than the level of even normal Jonin could relate to. Naruto at this point is fighting Orochimaru, and is actually winning, as his first move was to dash forward to Orochimaru, and his speed incredibly outmatched Orochimaru's, and Naruto immediately got a 3-hit combo off, which dazzled him, then continuing to hit Orochimaru and absolutely annihilate him. And it was not until Orochimaru was able to get one breath of air and a slight pause, which allowed him to summon his snake, that he was able to breathe a little bit. However, even his powerful snake, one of the 3 legendary summonings, was barely a match for Naruto. It was strong, of course, but Naruto had so much power. His speed allowed him to get anywhere, at any time. His speed was almost like teleporting, but it wasn't. It was just his sheer speed. However, it was at this point that he actually grew more and more to look like a beast. Quite literally, a tailed beast. His hair started growing out, his ears started to become fluffy and hairy, and his tails become clearer and clearer, all 12 of them in their majestic colors. He even used them to fight and balance himself, as he was able to use them whilst fighting in the air to push himself forward or back to somewhat control him, as well as he was able to rotate and do much more than just Orochimaru, or especially a snake again. He was incredible at moving around, and very fast at that, but his punches were not to be messed around with, as at this point he was fighting at a high Kage level. Sorry, not high Kage, high Jonin level. Even low Kage, if not even higher than that actually. Orochimaru had no choice but to take him seriously, and so their fight escalated, and escalated quickly. Naruto became more and more like that of a tailed beast, increasing his power and chakra output by a lot. Meanwhile, Orochimaru used incredible array of jutsus, as he had mastered, or at least able to use, hundreds of them, even thousands. Naruto is a master of variety of jutsu, as he had taken his own life to learn all of them, and hence it was his goal to learn immortality to continue his studies. But Naruto could not let his friends be taken for this madman to take their bodies and do his sick experiments. Sasuke thought of going in and trying to help Naruto, though Sakura stopped him, as she knew that none of them could compete with Naruto or even come close to their battle in strength, power, or speed, or really anything. Their fight was nothing compared to what they'd known. Even their senseis over the years would probably still have issues competing in this fight. This was not an easy fight. Now, everyone in the forest could sense this incredible chakra output, as even the proctors of the match were kind of scared. They didn't know what the heck was going on, and were thinking of even cancelling the whole thing, as this kind of power, passing in a tuning exam, that should not be a thing. So they actually dispatched a team of Anbu that should check it out and see if something is going on. Now at this point, Anko gave the news and report that Orochimaru had been sighted in the village and even talked to her. So this was not a good thing. They set their defenses up to the maximum, sent out 20 Anbu that should go one to each team and try to protect it and just overlook it, but not interfere if normal tuning exam stuff would happen. So for example, if Team 7 just fought another Genin team, they wouldn't interfere. So it was just if something that's not in the exam happen to them, then they would do something. And then call for help, because you really think that one Anbu can defeat Orochimaru? Yeah, no. They were mostly just looking to see. All the other Jonin were on high alert and ready to take action if anything happened, including Minato, who had previously, in previous years, set out kunai every 100 meters or so through the village, and especially the forest. By the way, that's 300 feet something, if you're American. Because he is the Hokage, so if anything happens, he needs to be possible to go there, and he needs to be there. Anyways, Orochimaru was completely outmatched, as at this point, Naruto was actually slowly, preparing for the elimination, if you know what I mean. Orochimaru, of course, tried his best, and actually, spit out his own body multiple times. I think you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of disgusting if you ask me. I don't know what it's actually called, but yeah, he just like makes a new body and it comes out of his mouth. It's really disgusting. But he does that multiple times and his new body gets destroyed and hurt every single time. And now Naruto is using a weaker form of the tailed beast bomb, as Orochimaru has no chance to dodge it, and blocking it would be very, very difficult. But actually, this was just a ruse, as, Naruto did send off a tailed beast bomb, but he didn't actually put that much chakra into it, as the main thing he actually wanted to do is send out an explosive kunai, which would not be seen as it would fly behind the tailed beast bomb. So whilst Orochimaru is focusing on the tailed beast bomb, an explosion kunai actually hit his shoulder, and his arm fell off. Now being completely torn off. This was a great loss, and Orochimaru would be greatly wounded, likely for a while. He had to go somewhere and retreat, else he would definitely die at this point, and he knew that. So he tried and tried and tried to leave, use his jutsu to disappear into the ground and leave. He called for Kabuto and anyone, even the Sound Ninja, although they couldn't help much, but perhaps they could be a distraction. He was desperate, but nothing seemed to work. At this point, one of the An saw Naruto fight, and 5 other ones sensed him in their direction and were coming closer and closer. But a flare was sent that would call everyone to the situation, as it was clearly the reason that, this great chakra output was happening. It was this fight. 3 An took care of the remaining genin there, 1 actually helping heal the remaining genin of Team 6, and then the rest stayed there to, try to fight. As they saw a genin, a 12-year-old, fighting Orochimaru and actually winning, they were all in shock. As Naruto quickly, although it cost him some time, he made a quick clone, a tailed beast style clone, which informed the Anbu that he doesn't really need help in this fight, as he got it. They just need to, number 1, not be in his way, and number 2, defend civilians and other genin there. As Naruto got this fight, he's almost now eliminating Orochimaru, but he also told them to be on the lookout. If Orochimaru ever comes up again and fakes his death, they should be careful. They follow his orders, as he's the best and strongest shinobi that they have right now in that situation, so whatever he says goes. Then, after about a minute, Minato arrives. The Anbu tell him what's going on, and he's in pure shock. The 12-year-old kid that he'd basically been a father figure to for the past few years is now fighting on a Kage-level battle and winning. However, Minato could not simply leave a 12-year-old to fight Orochimaru. He stepped in, as there was nothing else he could do. Yeah, it would be great practice and great experience, but it's a difficulty for the whole village. If Orochimaru ever escapes, it'd be a huge loss, and if he attacks the village again, who knows how many dead people there'd be. He couldn't leave it. So, Minato intervened. Through multiple kunai, fired Rasengans up, left, right, and center. However, it was Naruto that actually dealt the finishing kick knocking Orochimaru out for now, as they put him in cuffs, and a Hyuga that was there nearby actually tapped his chakra points so that for a few hours he would not be able to weave any jutsus even if he was wide awake. Then, completely blindfolded, in shackles, seals, and everything possible and imaginable, they brought him to a prison with many guards, the strongest guards. Now, the Genin exams were supposed to continue basically as normal, as it would be a big sign of weakness if such a criminal invaded the Chunin exams like it was nothing. So, Naruto was told to go back, but first he had a discussion with Minato. Minato had many questions about his incredible strength, as well as his weird appearance at the moment. Naruto's tail slowly started to fade again, and he appeared more human, but it took about 10 minutes to get back to his normal self, as he could not completely control it. Though he had pretty good control, he wasn't a master at it yet. He would have to train, for example, with his father, or any of the tailed beasts really. They would help him greatly. So now, Naruto, still a little cautious of any criminals or rogue ninjas, went back to his team, as they were also questioned a little bit by some Anbu, but then left off to continue their Chunin exams as well. Now, of course, this had taken a little bit of time off their clock, as they had about 2 days, as the evening was quickly approaching. However, Team 7 of course already had their scroll, and it would be an ease for those 6 to get one scroll. So they slept through the night, of course having an incredible load of questions for Naruto. Number 1, how is he this incredibly strong? Number 2, what just happened? Nothing was making sense. The only thing they knew was that Orochimaru was a criminal, and they kind of knew Orochimaru from, well, some of their stories that they had listened to, but he was almost a legend. How would their friend, a 12-year-old, defeat him? So anyways, the next morning they continued for the hunt, and Naruto actually left a little bit earlier than the rest, whilst the rest was still sleeping, and just got a scroll real quick, as it was nonchalantly. He took out a pretty easy team, as he did the same thing as at the beginning of the exams. He scoped out an easy team to get, and lucky for him, he even got one that was still half sleeping, as only one of them was awake. And even that person was not wide awake, if you know what I mean. Still half daydreaming. So it was an ease for Naruto to steal their scroll without many injuries. He dislocated one of their shoulders, but that's it. Then he just disappeared again with the scroll. So when everyone was awake, Naruto was making a campfire with an extra scroll on his side. By the way, yes, the injured teammate of Team 6 was still there, as it wouldn't be fair to take him out, as even though he was a liability for Team 6, it'd be unfair to take him out of the exams, so then just have to finish normally. But, well, with Naruto there, it would not be hard. Mitsumori is incredibly impressed with Naruto's power, and Shiro, well, she's not sure what she feels. She likes Naruto, yeah, but right now she's feeling something a little bit different that she can't seem to explain. And Naruto was actually a little nervous talking to Shiro at the moment, as whilst he was setting up his campfire. Due to the action he had a few minutes earlier getting the scroll, unconsciously his tails reappeared, as there were 12 of them, purplish with white and a few red lines in it. Well, Shiro, who was sleeping next to Naruto, actually started cuddling with his tail. They were very sensitive, so Naruto felt weird, but didn't want to wake her up, so he just sucked it up and waited. And of course, well, made the campfire. Then Team 13, as I'd call them, Team 6 and Team 7 combined, went to the tower to, well, hand in their scrolls and finish the second exam of the Chunin exams with only one injury. Now they had 2 more nights to prepare for what would come next, as they would first have to wait for the second exam to fully finish. There, Naruto actually talked with Gaara as he wanted to get to know him better. He talked to Shukaku prior, and Shukaku agreed to not be so harsh on his Jinchuriki, as it would benefit Naruto a lot if he had a Jinchuriki ally. Naruto, when he was younger, didn't like Jinchuriki at all. He thought that they were prisons for the tailed beast. And whilst they were, it wasn't their fault. Once he grown up, he knew that most Jinchuriki, almost all of them, were forced to become Jinchuriki, and even became Jinchuriki at birth, and it was decided for them at birth by their ancestors or others. So really, there was nothing that they did wrong, they just lived like that. However, Naruto had also learned a little bit about his 12-tailed cloak from Shukaku, so he definitely helped in indirectly defeating Orochimaru. So, in those 2 days, Naruto got to know Gaara better, and Gaara for the first time actually got some sleep on the second night, which was actually shocking for him. Of course, Shukaku's loud, but to Naruto, he's a little bit softer. He is an uncle after all, so he needs to be somewhat responsible for the things around his nephew. Anyways, now there would be preliminary rounds as well too many people passed the second and also first exam, as there were still 16 people instead of the 8 that were there last year. Or rather, last time. So it was going to be decided by one-on-one matches, as it would exactly double. So if they did one-on-one matches, there'd be half of the people left, and so exactly the number they needed for the finals. Sasuke fought against a no-name shinobi, and it was an easy fight for him. Now, Sakura had to fight against Ino, and whilst it was a very challenging fight, she actually won. Now let me tell you why. She'd seen Naruto and Sasuke get much stronger in such a short time that they became genin. Up until now, in the Chunin exams, she actually became stronger as she wanted to train along with them. Also, that's a little bit cheesy, but all of Team 13, Team 6 and Team 7, got a little bit more chakra when they were around Naruto, as his chakra cloak lets chakra basically leak out from him and lets it flow around the room if you want to be so. So being around him, plants for example, flourish as they grow strong, as well as trees. But even people who spend a lot of time with him, their chakra increases and they have more control of it. And that's also part of the reason that Naruto gives off kind of a warm aura, almost kind and loving, even when you don't even know him. So, Sakura won. Now, it was Naruto's fault, as he was against another no-name shinobi, not Kiba, but someone else. Didn't matter who it was, Naruto easily beat them, as he tried to control it, but even for a few seconds, his 12 tails did actually appear ever so slightly. So for Jonin and even some Chunin, they were visible, especially for Minato, whose eyes have trained to see things incredibly quickly as he needed them for battle. He saw it clear as day. He was gonna conduct research and look at what was going on, as he had no idea. Naruto never even told him that he was, well, what he was. So he would definitely have to talk and look at what's going on. Anyways, now Mitsumori, Shiro, and the other teammate had to fight. Shiro fought against another no-name shinobi, and then Mitsumori actually fought against Shikamaru. Of course, Gaara and Lee still fought, but Gaara actually won, same as in canon, but it was a little bit different. Gaara was much more in control, and for the first time in his life, actually somewhat relaxed during a battle. Of course, his sand was protecting him like always, as Shukaku still protected his Jinchuriki, and whilst he still wanted to control the body of his Jinchuriki, not as much because of Naruto appearing once again and talking to him. So Gaara still won, but more relaxed, and actually not almost turning into a zombie, or monster, whatever you want to call it. And also, he didn't actually break Lee's bones, which is a plus for Lee, and for the viewer, depending on who you like. So his arm and leg would be okay. Then they were all told to pick numbers, as those were the ones they were fought in 1 month. But, keyword 1 month, they would now have a 1 month training break to practice and heal from their injuries and, well, gather their chakra, do whatever they want. They had 1 month before the finals. As Naruto was heading out of the arena to go and start his 1 month training break, Minato came to him and wanted to talk. Naruto wasn't really in the mood, but knew he couldn't avoid this conversation, as he stayed calm and respectful. Minato first asked similar questions to what he asked before in the brief time that he spoke. How is he this powerful? What even happened? And how? Just how? Naruto didn't really have answers, as he didn't want to say that he was a tailed beast. He was scared that he was going to be persecuted like the other tailed beast if he did, and even sealed or said to be a monster, so he didn't want that. Worst case scenario, Minato might even try to fight Naruto, which would not end well. So Naruto just tried to kind of avoid the questions, but Minato kept on asking and insisting for an answer. Naruto just said basic answers that anyone else could come up with, like, I trained a lot, or guess I just have talent from birth. But Naruto, that was a stupid answer, Minato thought. Even crazy talent or training, or even crazy talent with training, could never achieve this by the age of 12. Something else had to be going on, as defeating Orochimaru at age 12? That is not normal. That's not humanly normal. That wouldn't even be normal for someone like the first Hokage or Madara, two of the legendary shinobis who fought long ago. However, after a few more minutes of talking, Naruto kind of just got tired of it and straight out left. She nonchalantly walked out, as Minato knew that she couldn't force Naruto to give him information that he didn't want to give. Yet she was still gonna try to, as it's important for Minato as a father figure, and I guess friend, but also as the Hokage to know what's going on with the shinobi inside his village, especially one so strong and promising. But for now, Minato would have to let Naruto go. So everyone else went as well, as Naruto was actually the last one to leave the arena. He was first gonna recover for a few hours, as Naruto didn't really have any stamina loss. Well, nothing crazy. The only thing that he was fighting against that was powerful was Orochimaru. But he'd already have 2 days to recover, so it should be fine. He didn't have any injuries, so all he could do now is train and wait. He kept his distance from most people, as no one saw him for over 20 days continuing. He only appeared at the beginning, and then he seemed to be gone for the rest of the 1 month training period. Now, it's not revealed what Naruto's training is, but you'll see later. Now we cut to the finals of the training exams, where Naruto enters the arena, him being the very first fight to happen. And he was to fight against Neji Hyuga, a Hyuga prodigy, whose might could only be compared to that of Mitsumori and Sasuke. He was truly very powerful, almost unrivaled by any other genin, but of course, the show is called Naruto after all, it's not called Neji. They both went into the ring for the first match to open the finals of the Chunin exams. They both bowed, did the hand sign to start the match, and the proctor began. Neji Hyuga immediately tried to use his Byakugan, his dojutsu, to allow his fight to go on easier, but when he did, he fell down in horror. All he saw when looking at Naruto was pure chakra. He was scared to death. It was menacing. Imagine sensing someone's chakra and bloodlust, but Neji was actually seeing it in person and up close. He almost started crying instinctively as his body started to shut down and beg for mercy. Though he tried to fight it, tried to stand up, and actually, slowly but surely, walked towards Naruto and tried to throw a punch. But it was so weak that it couldn't even hurt a fly. It barely even touched Naruto, as he just swiped it off his chest with a single hand motion. His Neji was almost falling unconscious. Then Naruto raised his right arm, but not completely, as to not give the perception that he was going to give up, just a little bit, formed his hand into a snapping motion, lowered his hands once more, and then, against Neji's chest, he flicked his hand, and Neji did 3 flips, going 10 meters backwards, a little over 30 feet if you're American by the way, and landed on his back unconsciously. Therefore, Naruto won the match. Minato, seeing this, was in shock, just like everyone else in the audience. He knew how strong Neji was, but even if it was just a normal Geni, destroying someone in a fight like that when they're the same age, and Neji's even a prodigy. What the hell was going on? Naruto was showing strength unrivaled for anyone his age, and it was clear that he was on a completely different level. Now we cut to a flashback where Minato actually saw Naruto training and kind of just tried to talk to him again, as they hadn't talked in 2 weeks since the last exam ended. Minato once again tried to find out more about Naruto and had actually done some research about Naruto's stay in the village and so on. He talked to his academy student and just looked throughout his life to find any signs of what was going on. However, Minato did not find out much more, as he was still pretty clueless. All he got was that Naruto didn't really talk that much in class, he didn't brag about his power, he didn't really show it off either. He was pretty intelligent, and his taijutsu and ninjutsu wasn't bad. Especially his chakra control was really good, and he had a lot of chakra. But nothing compared to what Minato saw in his fight against Orochimaru could ever be seen anywhere. But something similar happened to the last time, as Naruto didn't really answer many questions, though he did say that he was born with a lot of power from his parents and actually grew up in a family that had a lot of chakra, which was something that he didn't say last time. Naruto also said that he was older than he looked, which greatly surprised Minato, but if you really think about it, it's true. But then Naruto disappeared once more, this time not walking slowly away, but actually teleporting. Or rather, not completely teleporting, but rather going so fast that it seemed like teleporting to anyone watching. And even for Minato, that was pretty damn fast. Now, it was hard for Minato to find Naruto at all, as with Naruto's impeccable chakra control, he was able to hide his chakra and aura so well that it couldn't even be detected by Jonin class fighters, and yes, even Minato, the Hokage himself. Now we go back to the Chunin exams, where they're now waiting for Sasuke as he hadn't arrived yet. But at the request of the Kazekage, they actually waited for Sasuke's match. Now, important, the Kazekage is actually the Kazekage, as Orochimaru is still behind bars being questioned, and still getting information taken out of him as much as possible. So there has been more security, and the whole village is kind of in a limbo where they don't know what's going on or what's going to happen, as they buff their defenses and we're just on the lookout for trouble. So now they actually fast forward to Sasuke, his match being on hold, and then Shikamaru and Temari fighting first. Their fight went like in canon, just that Naruto didn't really cheer much. He was more laid back and just a little more quiet, though he still had a smile on his face and encouraged his fellow genin and teammates to do well on the exams and fights. So, as said, the fight goes the same, as Shikamaru gives up, but at the same time technically wins, so he actually does get the rank of a Chunin. Now, Naruto left a very good impression, as people are in sheer shock, but want to see another round of him fighting, even if it's just gonna be short, they just want to see him fight. He's now the show. He stole the show, as they are waiting for Sasuke and Naruto to fight. That would be a legendary battle, and it would just be incredible. But now after more and more waiting, Sasuke and Kakashi finally arrive. This time actually a little bit earlier, as the Kazekage didn't have as much drive as Orochimaru did to actually wait for Sasuke's match. And Naruto, knowing this, actually went and fetched Sasuke to then, well, have them not be disqualified, as Naruto just wanted to look out for his teammate. So now the fight between Gaara and Sasuke happened. Once again, Gaara not being as bloodlusty and angry, and, well, he did have sleep. So he's not as bad as in canon. Naruto gives him a high five, and gives Sasuke a fist bump, and therefore he basically opened the match. Then the proctor began it, and then they both bowed, and the fight began. Now, it would go pretty standard as in canon for now, until the part where Gaara turns into a half-Jinchuriki form, or rather, half-tailed beast form. Now, here, it's not actually as crazy as in the original. Gaara, as said, isn't quite as willing to take Gaara's body. Of course, he does have that will, but for Naruto's sake, he won't, because he knows that the tailed beasts already have a terrible reputation, and Naruto just wants to make that a little bit better. So Shukaku now attacks the village. It'd all be for nothing. So he tries to contain himself, though Gaara does get a few tailed beast marks, such as his hands turning more to sand, and his whole body just being coated in sand. But nothing like losing his mind or actually turning into a physical monster, and his eyes stayed the same. Sasuke actually won it. Now here's my reason. Gaara, I know none of you want to hear this, or rather not all of you, Gaara was being carried by Shukaku. Don't wear me wrong, his strength isn't bad, but Shukaku is carrying him hard in the real show. So, Shukaku not wanting to deal with him that much now, Gaara loses like at least half of his strength. So, Sasuke therefore wins, and moves on to the second round, which gives people even more hope for Sasuke and Naruto to fight in the finals. Now the fight is between Mitsumori and Kankarot. Now their fight is actually interesting. Mitsumori first goes by attacking Kankarot, and then actually finds out that Kankarot is a puppet, and the real Kankarot is actually the puppet's puppets. Well, you know what I mean? He's in the backpack, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. So then, he's now actually fighting the real Kankarot, as the real Kankarot actually puts out a pretty strong puppet, which buffs his power, and now Mitsumori is actually losing. Now Mitsumori uses some of his kunai that he has in his kunai pouch, and uses his superior speed to try to trick Kankarot into actually hitting himself with his own puppet. Mitsumori's strategy is kind of working, as he's overwhelming Kankarot with his speed, but Kankarot beats this strategy by actually using multiple puppets to basically surround himself. So now, Mitsumori would have to fight all of these puppets to fight the actual Kankarot. Now, Mitsumori actually uses this to his own advantage, as he uses Kankarot's positioning and puppets to actually go into a blind spot, make a quick clone jutsu. So now there's two different clones. One using Earth style to go underground, one jumping up. So now there's one going from the top and one from the bottom. Kankarot doesn't know which is the real one. So then, while Kankarot is focused on those two clones, the real Mitsumori actually dashes forward with a kunai from the spot that was just in, the normal spot on the surface, and then throws Kankarot to the ground with the kunai on his neck, or rather, throat. Therefore, Naruto might have a worthy opponent, as Mitsumori won the first round. Then the finals of the first round of the Chunin exams are Shiro against Sakura. By the way, I know I left some other people that were in canon actually that were in the Chunin exams, and I actually did this to use more of the side characters that I build up, because I want to develop them too, if you know what I mean. I'm still learning, making my stories better. I hope you like this. Anyways, let's go on. So now the fight is Shiro against Sakura, and this goes as following. Shiro uses her Tomoe Sharingan to completely destroy Sakura, as even though she's book smart and has some strategies memorized and can kind of use them, against a Sharingan opponent that was trained by the Uchiha clan, Sakura has no chance, and therefore Shiro wins. Sasuke gives her a fist bump, as both of them advance to the second round. Now the fight is Naruto against Sasuke Uchiha. A fight everyone in the audience is ready to see and excited to see. Everybody's concentration and focus are completely set on Naruto, Sasuke, and the arena or stage that they're fighting on. This would likely become the most legendary genin battle to have ever occurred. And Naruto and Sasuke are totally in for it. Yeah, they're teammates, but they're excited to fight. They've always had kind of a rivalry, but never had the chance to fight out all out like this, especially with an audience. So they're both excited to see what's going to happen, and also excited to see what the other did in the 1 month training break, as they didn't see each other at all during that time. So the fight now begins. The proctor opens the match. Naruto and Sasuke go to each other, bow, do the unison sign, and the match begins. Sasuke immediately switches to his Sharingan, which now actually has 3 Tomoe in both eyes. It's pretty strong. So yeah, 3 Tomoe in each eyes. Meanwhile, Naruto is clenching his fist, almost squatting down in a sense, kind of bending his knees, gathering his chakra up towards his upper body and focusing it on his legs, arms, and fists, as well as his eyes, as even though he doesn't have a dojutsu, he is able to somewhat use a variation of the chakra cloak to actually focus the chakra cloak onto his eyes or any other body part and enhance that part. So focusing on his eyes, he's actually able to mimic some abilities of the Sharingan, such as faster reaction speed and just being able to see better in a fight. Not quite as good as your Sharingan, but it's much better than a normal eye. Anyway, now Naruto's body is drenched in a purplish color, as his hair starts to somewhat float and seem to want to fly off his head, almost scared of the fight itself. Naruto, thinking he already won the battle before it even started, slowly starts walking towards Sasuke, completely relaxed, not with any ulterior motives. Meanwhile, Sasuke is thinking of 10 different strategies to use kunai, his flame jutsu, and Sharingan abilities to outplay Naruto and win with tactics, as he knows that Naruto's taijutsu is far superior to his, but his tactical sense, well, he could try to use that. He throws a shuriken at Naruto and uses the Shadow Shuriken jutsu, which takes Naruto off guard. Meanwhile, Sasuke starts running around Naruto, trying to get hits from every direction possible, but Naruto is simply too fast. And after a few seconds, Naruto is even able to suspect Sasuke's next move and actually block them before they even happen. Now Naruto slowly gaining speed, as he now too starts using it and runs around the battlefield, now doing a similar strategy to Sasuke that Sasuke previously used on him, throwing shuriken everywhere, running around, just that he's much faster, and even uses some basic taijutsu to kick him in the side whenever he can, or punch him in the face, or his stomach. Well, at least try. Sasuke is being pushed back fast, and then sees that he has to already use something that took him the whole month training break, not completely all of it, but a lot of the time, to do this jutsu, and Sasuke will now use it. It is the Chidori, a lightning style jutsu which he practiced with Kakashi, as he didn't want to practice a Sharingan like he'd had for multiple years with his brother and even his father. So he actually wanted to use this 1 month training break to do something unique, and Kakashi presented himself as a unique opportunity to teach him a new jutsu that Sasuke saw in a mission previously. So Sasuke builds up the Chidori, throws a few more shuriken with his other hand, and actually prepares a fireball jutsu, and then he would jump through his own fireball using the Chidori to try to slice Naruto up. Of course, he didn't want to kill him, but he knew that even if Naruto was hurt, not only does he have pretty good natural healing powers as they'd seen in previous training or sparring matches, as Naruto always, for some reason, healed his wounds after mere minutes, whilst it took Sasuke hours, even until the next morning, to recover completely. But also, if really something bad happened, there is medical ninjas on standby if anything were to happen. So Sasuke can fight carefree, and does the thing he planned. He jumps to his own fireball, not really being bothered by the heat, as he is an Uchiha, and they're basically Clan of the Fire. His eyes reflect the fire that he jumped through, as they're already the reddish color of lava. And Sasuke gets a few good stabs off with his Chidori hand, but the only thing that happened was some of Naruto's clothing ripping, as he was fast enough to dodge the rest. Just the first one caught him off guard, so Sasuke was actually able to tear Naruto's shirt up. But that's it, no actual injuries. But Sasuke did use quite a bit of chakra, as he used a fireball that had to be big enough to be able to hide a whole human body, and one of his Chidori, as he's not able to use infinite Chidori. He has a very limited amount, only being able to do about 5 of them. Now, the reason he's able to do it 5 times instead of 3 like in canon is actually because he's had much more training in his childhood, especially chakra training. Also, as I've mentioned many times now, he has that rivalry with both Mitsumori and Naruto, and they push each other to go further and further and train even just that little bit extra every day, which in the grand scheme of things makes them very much stronger. So after 1 month, Sasuke is able to use 5 Chidori in 1 day until he has to recover. So Sasuke has 4 more tries, but does not want to use 4 more, especially since he's had to use some other chakra for some other jutsu, as well as he has to use the Sharingan, which takes off at least 1 more. So if he uses about 2 more in this fight, that should be good. And then he might have a few minutes to recover and use 1 more on that day, but that is it. He could not use much more than that, as he needs chakra for more things than just his Chidori. Now at this point, Sasuke and Naruto start just fighting normal hand in hand, but Naruto's just winning. His agility is much bigger than Sasuke, and his sheer strength, his power, is much better too. Sasuke continues to try to outsmart Naruto, but he simply has no chance. No fireball or shuriken or kunai can do any harm to Naruto, and he does actually even use the second Chidori, but even that does less than the first one did, not even hitting Naruto at this point. Now Naruto does actually want to end this fight now, as he actually uses some of his chakra, not just his taijutsu, as now he's not just using the chakra cloak to enhance his physical strength, but he's actually using his chakra to basically grip the air, similar to water and tree walking, but this is like the 3rd step. So you go from normal walking, then you're able to tree walk, then you're able to water walk, which is already much harder, and then with very careful training and insane chakra control, you're actually able to basically jump in the air, almost being able to double jump. But with Naruto's insane chakra potential, he's able to train for days on end without having to rest. So when he puts his mind to learning a jutsu or even making a new technique himself, he just has to have the perseverance, as he has more than enough energy to. So with the months and years, he'll learn to jump in the air, and is actually really fast, even faster than running on the ground. As he barely has to move his legs, he just basically pushes himself off with chakra through the air like a pinball machine. Now Naruto uses his insane speed to actually throw punches mid-air, as when he pushes himself off of something, he makes the direction onto Sasuke, right onto his face, and kicks or punches him, and then jumps on the next piece of air, I'm gonna say, and then repeat. Now Sasuke is basically getting destroyed, kind of like in Haku's ice mirrors and canon, as he just simply can't keep up with Naruto's speed, and he tries to use 1 more Chidori as he's flinging it around, but now Naruto stops his insane speed, walks towards Sasuke, lifts up his own foot from the ground, and then drops it back making a light earthquake which makes Sasuke fall to the ground. Then the arena calms down again, the ground now being a little bit shattered, but normal again, as Naruto's holding a kunai to Sasuke's face, or rather, throat, which makes the match won for Naruto, as Sasuke has to give up, because realistically, if he didn't, Naruto could simply kill him at this point. But Naruto doesn't want to do that, so Sasuke gives up. Naruto's now through to the end, or rather, one round further. Now, the next fight would be Shiro against Temari, two very powerful kunoichi from two different villages. They both entered the arena as Temari thought she was going to win, but Shiro thought that she was going to win. They're both pretty self-conscious, but not in the way that they're shy, but they're self-confident, I should say. They're confident in abilities, and they can be, as they're both pretty damn powerful. Temari's wind jutsus are off the chart, meanwhile Shiro has her Sharingan and pretty good intelligence and strategies that she has perfected over the years. So, they bow, do the unison sign, and the proctor begins the match. Similar to Sasuke, Shiro immediately uses her Sharingan abilities, as she also has a very powerful 3 Tomori Sharingan in both of her eyes, left and right. Now Temari uses one swift motion of her wind blade, or rather wind fan, as she explains the whole thing about the 5 moons, or 3 moons actually, I think it's 3 moons. Comment down below, but I'm pretty sure it's 3 moons actually, so yeah. She explains that in 2 more hits, that Shiro's actually gonna lose, and she's gonna win the whole tournament, well, Temari is. Shiro won't let that happen as she rushes in for a fight, and Temari uses one more swish of her blade, but it's not as effective as she thought it would be. It does definitely push Shiro back, and surprises her with the power, as it is more power than the first dash, but it's less power than Temari imagined, if that makes sense. So that kind of continues, and Temari is reluctant to use her third strike of the fan, but at the end does actually do it. Now, it is by far the most strongest one, as it's even stronger than the first and second dash of the fan combined, but it is not quite enough to knock out Shiro. Now, it does definitely wear her out quite a bit, but she isn't quite down yet, as she goes in for another fight. She's very persevered, and her willpower is not easily breakable, even on the brink of unconsciousness. Temari's hand-to-hand combat isn't that good, as she did rely on her fan quite a bit, so even with a worn-out Shiro, they're actually fighting pretty equally at this point. Temari has difficulty using any jutsu with Shiro's Sharingan, but slowly but surely, Temari just has to wait until Shiro has to turn off her Sharingan to actually stay awake, as she has basically no more chakra left, because she's had to, number 1, remain her Sharingan in use, number 2, she's actually had to use chakra on her hands and feet to not fly away completely and smash into the wall. She's had to use a lot of chakra on her feet to stay standing. And also just throughout the fight, she uses quite a bit of chakra with her jutsu. So now, on the brink of unconsciousness, Shiro is keeping on fighting, and Temari is actually being pushed back quite a bit, as she has no choice. So at this point, they're both worn out, Shiro more than Temari, but out of sheer respect, Temari gives up the match for Shiro to win it. Now Shiro, losing the match and losing the adrenaline that was keeping her fighting, almost faints at this point, but has just enough power to actually be able to leave the arena and sit down, starting to actually sleep. Now, if I'm correct, which hopefully I am, because else this would be pretty messy of a what if, there should be 3 fighters remaining, one of them who didn't go through a second exam or round. So, Naruto fought Sasuke as the second round, Shiro fought Temari as the second round, but then Mitsumori hasn't had a match yet. And if I'm right, then he's the only one who hasn't had a second round that actually got through the first one. And now, there's kind of a problem, as they had, of course, known that there would be an uneven number of fighters in the second round, so they actually prepared a special test for that person, whoever it is, to pass and be able to go on to the finals, as it wouldn't be fair for that person to just skip the second round. And that would actually be to fight a real-life Chunin. Now, they chose a Chunin not too powerful, but not weak either. Pretty much an ideal Chunin, pretty much in the middle of what a Chunin is or should be. But as soon as their fight started, or actually a few seconds before, there was an explosion that was heard and seen with the crowd not far away, inside the Leaf Village, near the prison. Then multiple explosions followed across the walls, and some inside the village. Naruto, who is sitting in the stands, after hearing the explosion, immediately went over to the basement of the Konoha prison to check out Orochimaru's cell, as it was most likely that the explosions were there because of Orochimaru somehow linked to him. However, Orochimaru was already gone. His chakra seals were off, laying all over the floor, and the prison guards were beat up and knocked out, unconscious. The prison cells were completely shattered, as more prisoners than just Orochimaru had left. Even though, yes, Orochimaru was in a basically private cell away from all the other prisoners, some of the other prisoners escaped too, as now there was a mass breakout, as well as one of the most feared and wanted shinobi in the whole world on the run inside Konoha, whilst all other shinobi are looking at the Chunin exams. Naruto goes throughout the whole village trying to sense anybody's chakra, but Orochimaru is trying his best to conceal it, as he still has a seal on him, just not an actual one that stops him from doing any chakra usage or jutsus. He actually has one that seals his chakra and makes it invisible for anyone else, so basically no one can sense his chakra. But with pure speed, Naruto does finally see Orochimaru, as he also sees Kabuto, somebody that he had briefly seen in the Chunin exams before, but then dropped out during the preliminaries, as well as a few other shinobi that all came to rescue their master, Orochimaru. Orochimaru is shivering to the bone seeing Naruto here, as he knows that Naruto likely became even stronger since their last encounter, as he had at least 1 month worth of training. Immediately when Naruto is seen by Orochimaru, Orochimaru tries to flee and tells everyone to run for their lives. Kabuto thinks that this is completely unlike anything that Orochimaru would have ever acted like if it wasn't a true Kage level threat, or even higher, as Orochimaru probably has the power to take out even a normal Kage, maybe not a high Hokage, or a high Kage level fighter, but he definitely has a lot of power, especially with his subordinates and Kabuto, who's not that weak either. And then he just tells everyone to run. That's not a good sign. So now Kabuto is pretty scared, and when trying to sense chakra, he is not possible. He thinks to himself, what is going on? None of them can feel any presence or any type of chakra, as Naruto did them dirty and actually expanded his chakra out so far that in 100-meter radius, all that anyone can sense inside that radius is Naruto. His chakra is so strong and there's so much of it that he overpowers anyone else. And so anyone trying to sense anyone's chakra only sense his, especially if they're in that bubble of chakra. So Orochimaru can't contact anyone else to try to help him, or make any plans to flee with anyone else. Meanwhile, he knows that Naruto is hunting him down with insane speeds, rivaling that of a Kage level fighter, or even higher, as he activated his chakra cloak, enhancing his physical abilities. And even though he had just been in a fight with Sasuke, it really didn't take that much of a toll on his body. I mean, his chakra and recovery powers are insane, so even if he did, he had multiple minutes, which is more than enough for him. Orochimaru tries to think of anything, really anything, and Kabuto actually finds Orochimaru and they try to make a quick plan. And Kabuto tries to heal Orochimaru as best as possible, as Orochimaru did have some wounds from his time in prison, as no one wanted to heal him. He was still a criminal after all. So healing him would be a liability and a threat to the village, so no one did. Now Kabuto used a whole bunch of his chakra, as there was quite a bit to heal in Orochimaru's body, but then, because they were a little loud, Naruto heard them, as his ears are incredibly sensitive and he can hear humans from much farther than anyone else. So he finally found those two, immediately took out Kabuto, and now sees Orochimaru in front of him, who had just been healed prior, but still isn't at his full power, and still has a few scratches. Orochimaru is completely terrified, seeing how Naruto easily took out Kabuto with one quick dash. As Kabuto's dead body is laying beside Orochimaru, looking up at him with his dreamy eyes. "So what will it be, Orochimaru? Will you come back to your cell?" Naruto asked. Orochimaru had adrenaline rush to his head, as he saw no way out as he started running, using any means necessary, and even used some of his jutsu to transform, to body flicker, to make clones, anything that could try to help him or shake off Naruto, but none of it worked. Naruto kept on sensing Orochimaru's presence, as without Orochimaru even seeing, Naruto actually ripped off the seal that Orochimaru had. So now it was easy for Naruto to catch him, hunt him down, and well, eliminate him if needed. So after about one more minute, whilst more shinobi are slowly coming to the rescue, Naruto already has Orochimaru knocked out and tied up with even more seals than before, his body shaking on the ground. Because even though it's unconscious, Orochimaru's instincts are going crazy, sensing Naruto's insane power and having the insane shock of their, well, quote-unquote battle mere seconds ago that Naruto easily ended very quickly, as he basically condensed all of his chakra aura into one ball and flicked it at Orochimaru, at his brain, which completely set him into unconsciousness, as it basically short-circuited his brain. So Naruto's crazy aura is kind of gone. There are still traces of it for experienced shinobi to sense. By the way, the reason Minato didn't arrive earlier was that he was actually taking care of the civilians, as he didn't want any of them to be hurt, because that is his number one duty. Because hunting down shinobi and rogue shinobi and criminals is important, but saving the people and helping them in need is more important as the Hokage's duty. However, other Jonin arrived quickly, as Kakashi and some of his quote-unquote friends, like Guy, Asuma, and Kurenai, as well as some Anbu, the same ones that saw Orochimaru in the Forest of Death in the first place during the second exam, all arrived and saw Orochimaru's unconscious body on the floor, shaking, trembling beneath Naruto's feet, with Naruto with a smirk on his face, but also head down, looking a little bit sad at the same time. He was sad that Orochimaru was able to leave the village, or I guess leave the prison, as he didn't really leave the village. He wasn't able to. He was kind of on the border, almost leaving the village, but Naruto was just too fast. He was basically in the forest that led to Konoha Wall, the same forest where Mizuki tried to take Naruto's scroll and kill him in the first arc. That one. And Naruto is very angry at himself that civilians got hurt, and if not that, buildings got destroyed, and, well, it just made the people sad, which made him sad, as it was his shinobi duty to help the people for this to never happen. Yet, it did. He handed Orochimaru over to the Jonin and Anbu as they carefully escorted him over to the prison, Naruto slowly trotting along behind the group. If you're wondering, yes, a few other shinobi are still there. Some people who tried to, well, help in the rescue of their master Orochimaru. Some friends and even subordinates of Kabuto, as he basically took over Orochimaru's army, as he is his right hand, his second in command. But as Kabuto and his strongest subordinates are already out cold, it was an ease for the rest of the shinobi to clean up, and then Naruto and Minato swept the ground looking for any survivors or possible prisoners, and then the whole fiasco was over as quick as it began. Now, Naruto of course was questioned many times for hours on end, as basically for the remaining of the day, as well as the next, he had no time to breathe, no free time, and wasn't seen anywhere by his friends. Naruto didn't really say much more than he did last time. All that was visible by others was a purplish sphere of death, of pure chakra, as well as when the Jonin Anbu arrived, there was a small sight of 11 tails. Once again, purplish, with white and a few red stripes. Minato had some weird thoughts, or at least he thought they were weird. He thought that somehow Naruto was of a completely different clan that they don't know of, or perhaps he somehow had a relation to an animal, if that makes sense, or something. And if that was the case, probably a fox or a lion or something like that. And whilst he really didn't want to think about it, worst case scenario, the nine-tailed fox. Minato truly loved Naruto as his own son, as Naruto also kind of saw Minato as his human impersonation of a father. So it wasn't like they had a big fight. Minato just wasn't sure what Naruto really was, but maybe if they got to understand each other, the situation would be better again. Now, it was explained to everybody that a second version of the Chunin exams would be held very soon. Not many damages happened to the village, and no one died, just some minor injuries on some civilians, but that's it. Nothing that couldn't be fixed in a few days, at max. So, after less than a week, the village was completely back to normal, and whilst people were still a little shook up, it wasn't anything terrible. The second exams were held exactly 1 week after the original, so now we cut to the exams once again. Now, as I said, Mitsumori was gonna fight a definition of an average Chunin, as he does, and actually wins, which is pretty surprising, because that basically confirms that he has at least the fighting power to beat a Chunin, which at a young Genin level is really good. However, then, once again, they have a problem. 3 competitors for the finals. But of course, they had thought that through as well, so now there would be a 3-way battle, a 1v1 between Naruto, Shiro, and Mitsumori. 3 of probably the most promising shinobi in Konoha, and perhaps even the whole shinobi world. Maybe not the whole shinobi world, but definitely very promising candidates for future Hokage, perhaps? Who knows? But definitely they have the potential of becoming Jonin, Anbu, or even something greater that's currently unimaginable. A title similar to a Sani, perhaps, though that would be in the distant future. For now, they would have their battle to see who is truly worthy of having the champion title of the Chunin exams. So the match began as the whole audience was excited. Now, The audience was exactly the same as it was a week ago. Of course, there was a few people who did leave, as they did fear another attack of some sort, but most of the people actually stayed as they knew and had experienced only a few days ago that Kona is capable of defending themselves from powerful attacks and shinobi, so it'd be fine if they stayed, and Konoha actually offered everyone free housing until the second Chunin exams would go. So, now we go back to the present, where the fight finally begins, with the audience being swayed by the emotions in the battlefield, in the arena of the true finals of the Chunin exams. Begin! The proctor yelled. Naruto gathered the chakra in his feet. Shiro activated her Sharingan. Mitsumori got kunai out of his pouch and clenched them in his hand. With a determined face, he was ready for a fight. Naruto looked the most relaxed out of all of them, as then Shiro made the first move of those three, and actually headed for Naruto, as she thought not only would he not be ready to fight right now as he didn't look it, but also he had a fight with her brother and won, which kind of made her angry, because she wants to protect her brother's honor. Not only that, he would also be exhausted. Maybe, who knows. But she wants to avenge her brother, and it would just be the best thing for her to attack Naruto right now. So she does, and as soon as she tries to use a fireball jutsu, the classic entry to a fight of the Uchiha clan, and try to burn Naruto, he simply jumps up without even bending his knees, using the air jump technique that he developed himself, just that he pushes himself off the ground, and then basically does the whole pinball machine thing again, and lands at the opposite side of the arena that he started on. Shiro is dumbfounded at Naruto's insane speed that he seemed to activate so explosively, and Mitsumori is in awe, excited to see if he can fight Naruto perhaps. Now Shiro tries to continue to fight Naruto as he keeps on dodging without much hassle, as now Mitsumori joins in the fight, but instead of fighting Shiro, who looks open and not ready to be prepared to be attacked from behind, instead Mitsumori actually starts fighting Naruto as well, as now basically Shiro and Mitsumori are fighting 2-on-1 against Naruto. They give each other a quick glance as they nod, and then it's basically a deal set and done. They're gonna fight Naruto together. Now Mitsumori uses his speed, as it's not crazy, but he did do some training with his father during the 1-month training time, so his speed definitely increased quite a bit. Now, Naruto, of course, could try to still dodge with just air jumps, but he actually takes it a little more seriously, as now he stays on the ground and fights like a normal person. Not really fighting, mostly dodging, blocking a few attacks, as Shiro and Mitsumori surprisingly are fighting with pretty good teamwork. Now at this point, Naruto doesn't really want to power up to any chakra cloak or anything, so this is raw power. So he actually powers down to make it a even fight. And then he actually starts hitting back a little bit. At the beginning, only a few blows, but then more and more, and then it becomes a pretty much even match, dealing an equal number of blows from both sides. Mitsumori is getting hit the most, as Shiro keeps on trying to get sneak attacks from the side, and kicking down Naruto's legs for him to lose his composure, but Naruto sees it coming every single time, as he still uses some of his chakra to enhance his eyesight and reflexes. He doesn't want to lose the fight completely, he just wants to make it fair. That doesn't mean he's gonna let them win. Now Naruto goes more serious, as actually fully commits, and goes for Mitsumori, actually going on the offensive. It continues hitting him, and actually does some damage. Mitsumori is getting bruised up a little bit, nothing serious, and Shiro tries to come to the rescue, though she's pushed back with a single kick from Naruto. Shiro tries to use much more jutsu, as she hasn't used any chakra really. She's only used her Sharingan, though she didn't need it that much for the fight, so it didn't actually use up that much chakra. She still has quite a bit left, and Mitsumori still has basically all of his chakra left. So they both start and stand up again, but now instead of fighting hand in hand in close range, they actually use combined jutsu. For example, the Uchiha girl using some fire jutsu. Meanwhile, Mitsumori rushes in for a quick dash, or also using one of his jutsu, and once even tries to use an Uzumaki seal that he learned from his mother, Kushina, to try to seal Naruto's chakra, which is actually going pretty close as the chakra chains are very good and powerful jutsu, but Naruto is able to quickly dodge them before they hit him, as now there's a big crater in the ground. Naruto uses a tiny bit of his chakra cloak, about 1% of what he can use, but it still buffs his power by quite a bit, about 30%, which is a lot in this fight. Think about it, 30% increase in power, that's quite a bit. And with that, Naruto is able to quickly rush Mitsumori, hit him to the ground, then do the same to Shiro, as he is the only one standing, and as soon as any one of them tries to stand up, he quickly pushes them to the ground, giving one more hit in the stomach. At this point, Mitsumori is already out cold, and Shiro is on the edge of giving up, but tries once more, as Naruto slowly walks over instead of near teleporting with his insane speed, gives her a little glance, a nod, a little smile, and then knocks her out, with one quick flick to the head. With that, Naruto won the match, impressing everyone. The audience is shook. As by the way, the audience and the public doesn't really know that Naruto actually took out Orochimaru 2 times now, though it is known amongst the shinobi. Well, mostly the more experienced and older shinobi, but some genin have come to know it too, especially from their parents, and Shikamaru even found it out himself. But anyways, now Naruto won the Chunin exams and has the Chunin rank automatically, as the others could still get it, but winning the Chunin exams gives him an automatic promotion to Chunin. He gets a gold medal for it, as Shiro and Mitsumori get one too, though they're still knocked out so they can't physically receive it. Now that Naruto has achieved the rank of Chunin, as well as the medal for winning the exams, he seems to be respected even more than he was before. No one really didn't like him, or went as far as hated him, but they were kind of neutral. But now, people had a liking towards him. Not only did they realize he was strong, but he was able to save the village, as at first it was a rumor that a genin had played a big role in subduing Orochimaru, and then people made guesses, but slowly and surely shinobi who were working with Minato actually let loose of their secret and said openly that Naruto played a huge role in actually, well, stopping the Konoha Crush, as it would later be called. Team 7 has some time off, as their team deserved a break. It did very well on the Chunin exams, all 3 of them getting to the finals, and Naruto even winning, Sasuke being left at 4th place, which is still pretty damn good. They don't know right now who's going to become Chunin, so theoretically Sasuke could actually become Chunin, and even Sakura could. But they won't know that for 1 or 2 weeks. But of course Naruto knows, since winning the whole Chunin exams is a guaranteed chance at getting Chunin rank, so he knows for sure. Anyways, after 1 more week of waiting, they now had the opportunity to go back to normal missions. Of course, Sasuke was a little bit cautious of Naruto. Not necessarily in an evil way, but Sasuke just didn't want Naruto to get stronger, and paid close attention to every single one of his moves, even the way he walked, breathed, and blinked. At one point, Sasuke was even using a Sharingan to analyze Naruto's way of living. Kinda crazy if you ask me, but hey, Sasuke's Sasuke. He'd do anything to become stronger. Now at this point, Team 7 was actually giving a few more C-ranked missions, as their record of successfully completing missions at the moment was 100%. Unheard of, but yet it was true. Even the somewhat silly D-ranked missions, they completed fast and successfully. Team 7 was truly the team of Konoha, and was highly regarded as the best team of all of Konoha. Of course, there were some contenders in terms of pure strength, but mission-wise and statistics, said Team 7 was better. By quite a bit, actually. So much so that people actually thought of giving Team 7 a low B-ranked mission, if not a higher C-ranked, just to see how much they can truly handle. Of course, they wouldn't do anything crazy that could end in a fatality. Of course, Kakashi is there, but they didn't want to lose precious, high-potential Genin or Chunin when they're still so young. They just want to see their limits. So they decide on a high C-rank mission, as it is harder than any mission they've previously had. Of course, except for the Land of Waves, as that wasn't technically a C-rank mission, that was a harder one. But this is still harder than any normal C-rank mission would be. They're to take care of some bandits who are pillaging a village. But these weren't your average Joe Schmo bandits. These bandits were said to have some form of chakra control and were able to use jutsu. Especially their leader, whose name and identity was unknown. The only thing they knew was that he was much stronger than the other ones, perhaps at a Chunin level, or even a little bit above. Of course, this wasn't anything Team 7 couldn't handle, but it was good for the village to see how well Team 7 can handle it. So, they went on the mission, and it was actually pretty easy. Sasuke had grown much stronger since the Chunin exams, as he was desperate to become much better than he was, to finally one day beat Naruto. Their rivalry grew and grew every day, and whilst they didn't distance themselves from Mitsumori necessarily, they became much closer, whilst Mitsumori kind of just stayed where he was. Of course, focusing on his own Genin team at the time. They were kind of busy. Now, Sakura did also train, as she wanted to keep up with the boys and not be left in the shadows as a useless character of Team 7. And it actually went pretty interesting. She wanted to train with Anko, as she saw her as a pretty strong woman, but also wanted to train with Kurenai, basically the woman that she was looking up to when she was younger, and now as well. Anko was a little bit reluctant, but Kurenai agreed, as she currently didn't have anyone that she was personally teaching, or coaching, or training, or whatever, so she took on Sakura as her personal student. The training went pretty well, as Sakura and Kurenai actually have similar mindsets and ability stats, just that, of course, Sakura is much weaker than her Jonin sensei. They're both pretty good at Genjutsu, and their intelligence is pretty up there too, especially their book smarts, but Sakura has been trying to develop some in-battle strategies, and Kurenai is pretty good at that too. So first, Sakura learns more about chakra control and enhancing any jutsu that she does in the future. Then more about kunai shuriken throwing. And then later on, Kurenai would focus on more specific things. And then it was Sakura's plan to train with Anko afterwards to get to know everything. Then she could truly become as powerful as Sasuke and Naruto. And perhaps, this might be just a dream, perhaps even surpass them. She'll see, but she's ambitious to become stronger. Anyways, so for the next few weeks, Team 7 kept going on missions, as their reputation only grew and grew. The team got much stronger and took on harder missions every single time. It was now explained that Naruto, of course, had gained the rank of Chunin for winning the whole exam, but even if he didn't win, he showed more than enough capability of becoming a very good Chunin, and even Jonin down the line. And Sasuke also had the necessary strength, and even above that, to become a strong Chunin too. Sakura sadly didn't make the cut, but she's excited to try out next time, as she's confident that she can make it with even more training, and she'll blast off the socks of their competition. However, now I'm gonna do a time skip, precisely speaking, the Shippuden time skip, which is about 2 years, but I'm gonna say it's a little bit more than 2 years actually. And we'll skip over all of it, and it'll be revealed what happened, bit by bit, later on in the story. We start off again with Naruto, who's standing on the mountain of the Hokage faces, staring at the sunrise, with a smirk on his face, being proud of himself for what he's achieved in the past 2 years. He has done things unimaginable, and even achieved things that he thought he couldn't even do in his best dream. Naruto was happy with himself as he would finally meet up with Team 7 once again that very day. I'm gonna say this was exactly 750 days after they all became Genin. And they decided that that was gonna be the day when they all meet up as Team 7 once again. Because they kind of split up between those 2 years, kind of minding their own business, doing their own thing to get stronger, and just go further in their own direction, and to achieve their passions, or whatever they wanted to do. Meanwhile, Kakashi went back to being a normal Chunin ninja as he achieved some of his old reputation back, but better. Not as much bloodlust and not as murderous, but he was still seen as a dangerous opponent for any rogue shinobi and even villagers who would somewhere do something against Konoha. They would actually take Kakashi into account again as a solo. But of course, there were a few other people from Konoha very powerful too. One of them being Minato, who even after a few years, quite a few years, after the Third Shinobi War, is still very fast and very strong. And yes, he is still the Hokage. He's not actually that old. Anyways, so Team 7 was to meet on their old training ground, where they did their first bell test, as it was actually a recurring thing that they did to practice their teamwork, and it was actually the Genin team that suggested it to Kakashi, and he really liked the idea, so they did it once a month, and on request even once a week, where they would just do a random bell test. With nothing to lose, it was just a test for teamwork, and would actually be seen as more of training. Anyways, so they would actually go to do another bell test. After over a year of not having done any bell tests, they would meet up and do one together. Now, Kakashi was actually a little bit scared, quite literally, as he actually didn't want to fight Team 7 anymore. He was thinking, and he was right, that soon any one of them would be stronger than him, so them fighting as a team of 3, having almost perfected their teamwork, would not be good. But they met up there. Naruto was actually the last of the Genin to arrive, or the former Genin, I guess, and then Kakashi of course came late as always, but they took that into account and everybody came in half an hour late, though they still had to wait about 10 minutes for Kakashi. So then everyone was there. Without that much talking, Kakashi, for some reason, explained the bell test to them as if they'd never done it before, and then they started the test. Naruto, talking loud as ever, proposes strategy, though the other two of his teammates, knowing exactly what Naruto was up, didn't follow his orders at all, as it was actually a ruse to distract Kakashi, to make him think that they were going to try to do a sneak attack on him, when they actually just did the opposite. Naruto would rush in front, and then Sasuke and Sakura right behind Naruto, and would just drash on him. Then Sasuke and Sakura kind of went to each of Kakashi's side, but Naruto kept hustling. Then started to slowly activate his chakra cloak. Very, very weak. This was less than 1%. As his power kept increasing, and he gained a purplish aura slowly but surely that thickened with time. Sasuke turned on his normal 3 Tomoe Sharingan, as Sakura smashed the ground with her fists so hard that with one smash, there was a registered earthquake of about 4.2. It's not crazy, but if you really think about it, for the local area, wasn't that big. It was like a radius of 100 meters or so. 300 feet, by the way. Sakura created a mini earthquake. Quite a feat, to be honest. Nothing crazy, but just putting it out there. And yes, for everybody wondering, I am trying to make the best of Sakura here. Haven't done it before, but we'll see, I guess. And with that, Kakashi trembles, loses his focus, and combined with Sasuke and Naruto's close combat abilities, there's now two kunais held to Kakashi's throat, with Sakura being ready to throw in one more punch, standing behind Kakashi, which would completely knock him out. Or at least that's what they were thinking. They weren't sure, of course. Sakura had never tested her strength out like this on Kakashi, so she wouldn't know, but that was her best guess. Anyways, they won the well test with that, as it was very, very easy with them, none of them actually even using their full power. Then Kakashi grabbed everybody a ramen, and they went together to Ichiraku Ramen, the best ramen shop in all of Konoha. There they talked a little bit, especially being curious about what Naruto did, as Naruto actually took 3 months of vacation and took that time to travel around the world, especially through the ninja villages. However, secretly he was visiting all of the 9-tailed beast Jinchurikis, getting a little bit of a sense of the situation, but also he was just very willing and needing to see his family, especially his mother, after so many years, and actually took a little bit of time to train with Yuji Ni, the 2-tailed Jinchuriki. Naruto didn't actually say that he was the child of tailed beasts, but he said he had a very close connection, and therefore was actually able to get some of the tailed beast powers like the chakra cloak. She went along with it, and Naruto, for about 1.5 months, stayed in the Hidden Cloud to do some training with Yuji Ni, especially Matatabi, and they actually even practiced in their mindscape. This gave Naruto much better control of his tailed beast power, but was actually also a very emotional experience for him. Then he moved on to more of the other tailed beasts. Of course, he also visited Chukaku, as Gaara had become Jonin, with the former Kazekage still being in place, as of course Orochimaru never, eliminated him. However, Gaara was gaining popularity in the Sand Village very quickly as he grew in strength and popularity. They were also curious about what Sakura did, as her Konoichi powers actually became very, very powerful, more powerful than Anko or Kurenai could do, so they couldn't really train her. And she even trained with Kushina, as she wanted to be the ultimate Konoichi and therefore train with the strongest Konoichis to get basically some of all of their powers, but of course was willing to train with men shinobi too. She just wanted to have most of her training with Konoichi like her. So she trained a lot of her sealing abilities as well as some further advanced chakra control with Kushina, as well she was a sealing master of the Uzumaki clan and had a lot of scrolls of the former Uzumaki village. Though not that many, she had to basically recreate some of them. However, after her powers became stronger than any Konoichi in Konoha, not in one specific thing, for example, her sealing power is inferior to Kushina's, but her overall strength, was seen as better, and she was looking for a new master, so they actually brought in Tsunade. At first she wasn't willing to train any brat, but after seeing Sakura's power, she was excited to take on a student, and actually lived in Konoha for a while. She taught Sakura healing powers, as well as incredible punching strength with focusing her chakra. And of course Sasuke, who trained in the Uchiha compound a lot, and even temporarily became an Anbu, working hand in hand with his brother as well as Shisui, two of the Uchihas, legends, prodigies, and powerhouses. Kakashi really didn't do that much except for do missions, so there wasn't much to talk about him. Then they got a quick notice from Iruka, who got a message from Minato personally to grab Team 7, as Minato knew that they'd just come together again, and knew that they were the most powerful team in Konoha at the moment that was available, so he called them up as there was an important mission to do, and that was to capture Gaara back from the Akatsuki who had kidnapped him only mere minutes before this letter was sent from the Kazekage himself. Naruto and Team 7 rushed to the Sand Village immediately, of course accepting their offer, especially Naruto, who wanted to pretend his friend and his uncle's Jinchuriki. Now Naruto and his team are off for the mission of rescuing the Kazekage's nephew, as well as the one-tailed Jinchuriki, which are both the same person, aka Gaara of the Sand. Naruto was moving faster than the rest of his team, as Kakashi and Sasuke were trying to catch up, and then Sakura followed along. She was staying at the back as her greatest strength was definitely not speed. Meanwhile, the three, I'm gonna say boys of the team, are, well, pretty speedy. Especially Naruto, but Kakashi and Sasuke are pretty damn good too. I mean, Sasuke, with his Anbu duties, had to upgrade his speed, and Kakashi did too at a young age. Anyways, they arrived at the Sand Village very quickly, and they actually met up with Temari on the way. She was very happy that Team 7 was coming, as she knew of their power, and could only dream of what they had become after 2 years more of training and experience, as they were already very strong before, or I guess during the Chunin exams. And then they finally arrived at Sand Village. They found out about Kankarot's injury, as venom had been spread through his entire body. However, Sakura was a medical genius and prodigy, so after only about 15 minutes she was able to heal him. Before that, however, Chio thought that Kakashi was actually the White Fang of the Leaf, which is why she tried to attack him, though Naruto blocked her attack easily and told her to relax. The fourth Kazekage was also there in the room, as he was worrying about his child Kankarot, who was his son after all. And of course he was also worrying greatly about Gaara, his other son, who had been kidnapped by the Akatsuki. Lady Chio ever so slightly touched the subject of the nine-tailed beasts, as they were likely the motive of this attack, because why else would they kidnap Gaara? Out of everybody, he was the only Jinchuriki in the entire stand after all, so if they truly wanted power or money or whatever, they would have gone for the Kazekage or something like that, not for Gaara. Sakura and Sasuke didn't know that much about the nine-tailed beasts. Of course they knew of their existence and a little more, but not that much, as it was basically a forbidden topic to talk about due to the tragedy of the Nine-Tailed attack on Konoha. So it was to never be spoken of ever, especially in the presence of Minato or his family. And well, Mitsumori, who is the Nine-Tailed Jinchuriki after all. Then Team 7, along with Chio, went on their way to retrieve Gaara. Now, Temari went along with them, and the Kazekage would've, but he stayed in the village in case another attack happened or anything, since at the moment they were the most vulnerable they had been in quite a while. So then, the 6 shinobi leave to retrieve Gaara, the one-tailed Jinchuriki. On the way there, Chio talked a little more about the nine-tailed beasts, especially on the one-taileds who had caused trouble ever since he had been basically assigned by Hashirama to the Sand Village. He had, over the time of his multiple Jinchuriki, killed many citizens, destroyed many buildings, and just caused devastation wherever he went. However, for some miraculous reason, ever since the Chunin exams that Gaara took place in, the Jinchuriki, for once in their lifetime, seemed to be able to be a normal person. Sakura has a bunch of questions about the nine-tailed beasts, as she's very intrigued by them, such chakra monstrosities. But for some reason, when listening to the story of the tailed beasts, she has an afterthought of Naruto's 11 tails that she had seen during the Chunin exams, and even a little bit afterwards. He never talked about it, though they always knew he was hiding something, but there's no way he could be a Jinchuriki, right? And if, then a Jinchuriki of what? Every tailed beast was known. There were only 9 of them. So what could he possibly have? She didn't want to think about it further, as it kind of weirded her out. But Sasuke started thinking similarly. Then they finally arrived at the gate, where a huge boulder with multiple seals on it seemed to block the entrance where the Akatsuki resided in. There, Naruto made quick work of the seal, as when Sakura was about to unseal it, as she had learned from Kushina Uzumaki herself, a seal master, Naruto with the sheer speed was able to tear off all the seals at the same time and unseal them with a quick, basic unsealing jutsu, and he did it so fast that none of them would explode or do anything that they were technically meant to do. So then the seals were gone, and after that, with a quick earth-style mud jutsu, the big boulder, the rock, seemed to get wet and then transform into a liquid, decreasing in size and hardness, and then becoming just a puddle of mud in front of Naruto's feet. However, their eyes were shocked as Team 7 was looking at Gaara, whose tailed beast was being sucked out of him by a weird statue with 2 people in Akatsuki robes looking and staring at the process of Gaara's soul being ripped away along with the tailed beast. Gaara had mustered enough strength to be able to turn his head and look at the bright light that seemed to come into the cave where the tailed beast was being transferred, and there he saw Naruto in the foreground. As Naruto, unlike how he usually would have tried to blitz his enemies, froze up. What he saw was devastating, unlike what he'd ever been able to imagine. It was a horror story. His friend was being killed, and his uncle sealed into yet another Jinchuriki, yet this one was different. It seemed to have even more menacing power than any single shinobi could muster. So badly that it even resembled some of an Otsutsuki's chakra. Which, by the way, Naruto does know how an Otsutsuki's chakra feels, due to the 9-tailed beasts kind of having a little part of an Otsutsuki in them. Them combined is basically what an Otsutsuki is like. So there you go. Also, Naruto kind of has Otsutsuki chakra, as he's a combination of all of the tailed beasts, basically. Anyway, Naruto's eyes were turning slit-like as his hair grew out and turned into a stronger purplish color, and a chakra claw activated, gaining more and more form and boldness by the second. The 2 rogue shinobi in the Akatsuki clothes were now staring at Naruto, as he was emitting so much ki, killer intent, and chakra that it could probably even knock out a normal person that wasn't trained in the shinobi arts. And his power kept rising. Slowly but surely, 11 of his tails appeared. The tails became more and more clear, so much so that after a few more seconds, it looked like they were physical objects, which they kind of were. Naruto now, as he should have done a little bit earlier, or as he would have done depending on your view, now rushed into the battle, and instead of hitting or kicking like a normal person, he mostly used his tails to fight, as they were incredibly coordinated, some hitting the ground, the other hitting the person, the ceiling, and they basically, if you're aware of gaming, they basically had aimbot, as the tails had even the ability to enlarge and get smaller depending on how far away the enemy was, so the enemy was basically never out of reach, which was a pretty OP buff if you ask me. So his tails could get longer, and he's just so incredibly fast that Naruto could not let his enemies get a fresh breath of air. Kakashi and Shio used this opportunity, as Naruto was currently taking on 2 of the Akatsuki, to go to Gaara and try to do something, and then Kakashi called over Sakura for her to at least maintain him until they can get him back to the village where they can actually properly treat him. And Chio was even thinking about already giving up her life to save Gaara's, but she was gonna hold on for a little bit. Now, Gaara was unconscious, but they knew that he was still alive, even if just barely. He still had quite a bit of the tailed beast, at around being 50% in the ghetto statue and about 50% in Gaara. So it's not a death sentence, but it's definitely not looking too good, as it was forcefully ripped out of him. Anyways, now Sakura tries to heal Gaara as best as possible, as his heartbeat and breath calms down as it goes back to basically someone just sleeping tightly. Now Sasuke joins Naruto in the battlefield, but Naruto kind of has to pay attention not to hit his teammate, so it's a little bit of a drawback to Naruto's soloing technique, but him fighting with Sasuke together makes the fight much easier, as fighting two opponents at once is not Naruto's style. Naruto completely focuses on Sasori and his puppets, as he's fast enough to dodge any of their attacks and venom. Meanwhile, Sasuke is able to easily counter Deidara's attacks, as Deidara is mostly a long, maybe mid-range fighter, but Sasuke can get up close and use a Sharingan to obliterate anything that Deidara throws at him, even using the sword that he had mastered over the months. As yes, Sasuke still has a sword like in the original, just not with snake powers. Now Kakashi goes in to help his two former students, even though it kinda looks like they don't really need help. He goes to Sasuke for help, and then they both beat Deidara pretty quickly, and then Naruto gets finished with Sasori at about the same time, and his eyes go back to normal, and his tail slowly start to fade again, though they will take a little while to go back to normal. However, little did he know Sasori is actually not completely dead, as his core is still alive. Chio notices that and guides Naruto back, basically using him as a puppet, as he was not fully conscious of the scenery at the moment. He was totally caught up in his emotions and feelings and what had just happened, because he did just go rogue and absolutely lost control of his own power. Whilst he's not a Jinchuriki and the tailed beast won't take over, he still has basically a tailed beast, but he is the tailed beast. But the anger and hatred of the tailed beast can still get the best of him, and whenever he gets angry, his powers automatically get stronger too, so he basically is the tailed beast trying to take over his own body, if that makes sense in a way. Anyways, back to the fight. Naruto is being pulled out by Chio, as then Kakashi uses his Chidori to quickly completely shatter Sasori's core, and then actually end the fight. Now they have some time to interrogate Deidara, as they didn't eliminate him, to say. However, first they need to immediately get back to the village, but Naruto can take care of that, as without saying anything, he takes Gaara's hand, who's still sleeping tightly, as well as Sakura's, and then they just appear in the Sand Village Hospital, with Gaara already being placed on the bed, and Sakura standing in front of him, and Naruto on the opposite side of the bed. Naruto basically took them with him, as he's so fast that he is literally teleporting. So now Sakura delivers healing to him, as she tries his best, and Naruto actually infuses a little bit of his own chakra to Gaara, and focusing especially on Shukaku's chakra that he had absorbed and maintained over years, as once again, he absorbed some of his Shukaku's powers when he was born and very, very young, still living with the tailed beast. Of course, he got some of every tailed beast chakra, but he kind of gave some of Shukaku's chakra back to Gaara so he would make it and his healing powers would kick in, so he would be fine. Then he goes back to Team 7, or I guess the rest of it that's still there, as well as Chio. They make a quick circle because Naruto tells them to, and you do what Naruto tells you, and then they all get back to the hospital, as now there's not just Sakura, there's also the Kazekage and Kankarot standing there. Oh, by the way, I forgot, but Temari was also brought back by Naruto. He didn't just leave her there. So, this mission was a very good success. Gaara was brought back, and he should be fine from now on. Kankarot was healed, basically perfect. He would just have to rest for a few days, but he'd be more than fine. Perhaps even being at peak condition. and two Akatsuki members were eliminated, one now being interrogated and imprisoned, the other completely eliminated off the face of the planet. Naruto was proud of himself, but still had to take time to reflect on his actions, as this is the first time he had gone rogue in such a long time that it felt weird to him. He completely lost track of his emotions and became a true monster, and actually became a tailed beast, but without emotions. He was a killing machine, even if it was just for mere moments. It was what it was. Now Team 7 triumphantly went back to Konoha, having saved the nephew of the Kazekage and strengthened Konoha bond with the Kazekage and the Sand Village completely, even further. Naruto especially was held afterwards by the Hokage as he was hailed by Minato, but also Minato just wanted to talk. They hadn't talked in a little bit, and Minato was kind of like Naruto's human father, so he just wanted to talk, like a normal father would. However, Naruto did actually tell Minato, the only one, that Naruto was not in control through the whole thing, especially during the fight. He was not in control of his emotions, and he became insane. Minato was worried at first, but after discussing it further with Naruto, he got to a little bit of a sense of understanding and that they would somehow fix the situation, as it wasn't too bad. Naruto doesn't just go rogue and attack random people. It's just when he sees someone dying in front of him that he cares about, well, then it's kind of a problem. Now, a little bit of a problem when comparing to canon is that Team 7 never got the information out of Sasori that Orochimaru had connection with Sasori, and that was, well, because Orochimaru was still locked up in Konoha, and hadn't been seen by any rogue shinobi in multiple years. It had now been over 2 years since anyone outside of Konoha had seen Orochimaru or even heard of him, except for the fact that, well, he was stuck in prison. Naruto, however, did actually go to Orochimaru after his talk with Minato, as he thought that he could get quite a few bits and pieces of information from Orochimaru, as he knew that Orochimaru had a connection with the Akatsuki. Even if it wasn't that strong, he still knew some things that Konoha did. Now, Orochimaru wasn't the canon Orochimaru anymore. He had kind of broke in his months, which turned into 2 years of prison. Konoha tried to get a lot of information out of him, but Orochimaru was a strong shinobi after all, so it was still hard, even with that much time. Naruto here wasn't a threat to Orochimaru, he really just wanted to talk, though still kept his guard up and was looking for anything that Orochimaru did, even though he was handcuffed with many chakra seals and more, as well as bars that had chakra seals on them, which made them impenetrable with any jutsu, and the whole building had chakra seals on it, so it was truly not a way to get out with chakra, and they knew that Orochimaru did not have the strength, the pure human strength, to get out there, and probably no one did, except for maybe my guy or someone like that, but, well, yeah. Naruto started by asking general questions like what the Akatsuki might be plotting, and Orochimaru did give a little bit of a vague answer, saying that they'll fulfill everyone's dream, but Naruto wasn't satisfied, so he asked further. However, Orochimaru was playing games and didn't really reveal all that much, though instead of having a smirk or a grin like he usually would, he had a sad expression, as he was even a little bit scared of what the Akatsuki might do. These 2 years have made you soft, haven't they? Orochimaru, the snake Sanin. Naruto said, "What did you say, boy?" Orochimaru would try to do something, but even if he could somehow get out of this prison, he knew that Naruto would catch him like a Pokemon once more, so there was no hiding and no playing games. Naruto was just out of this world. Now, Orochimaru even asked Naruto some questions about him, as they hadn't really talked in quite a while. Now, Naruto did talk to Orochimaru since the 2 years, but really not that often. Orochimaru's forces were initially completely broken and disbanded as Kabuto and Orochimaru and some more of their main fighters, as well as the Sound Four, had all been completely eradicated, which basically formed the whole Orochimaru force, with everyone else being either puppets or punching bags or sacrifices in battle. However, without Orochimaru's knowledge, his forces had actually been regaining strength and reformed with new leadership who hailed Orochimaru and wanted to free him once more, as his companions had many months ago. However, they became almost like a cult, basically worshipping Orochimaru and kneeling to his feet. But you could not completely neglect their strength. They weren't too bad. Combined, they could definitely take on some Chunin to Jonin fighters, which wasn't all that crazy, but it was something. And they were still growing in strength rapidly, as they hadn't formed that long ago. Meanwhile, the Akatsuki seemed to be gearing up for something, a battle of sorts, but stretched out through multiple weeks and even months. Naruto's finished with Orochimaru, as there's nothing that they seem to get out of their conversation, until Orochimaru gave one little piece of advice before Naruto could leave. Watch your back. Don't look for trustworthiness in comrades. Fight alone. And be careful of the Akatsuki. They might try to get you. Or they might try to get you to join their organization, but whatever you do, stay safe, young one. Orochimaru was actually showing some kind of kindness in telling Naruto this. However, still, there were the classic Orochimaru traits, as Orochimaru didn't really trust anyone else except for himself, and he basically said for Naruto to do the same, as strong ones have to fight on their own, whilst the weak people have to look for team members and fight with teamwork or comrades to make up for the strength difference. So Naruto would now go on to try to somewhat put an end to the battle with the Akatsuki, leading to victory. He knew this wouldn't be easy, so he geared up a little bit, preparing for a true battle, and headed out. Where he was going, he told no one. He didn't even tell anyone that he was leaving, since he was definitely coming back. In victory. He had heard of Hidan and Kakuzu of the Akatsuki, two nigh immortal beings who had been hunting Jinchuriki and their tailed beast for a few weeks now. And Naruto was getting angry. How dare they hurt my family? Naruto went out, but the clothes he was wearing were Anbu clothes. Reason? We go into a flashback. Naruto, I think you should become an Anbu, Minato said. An Anbu? I guess it would make sense with my speed and chakra. But are you sure about this? Naruto, I believe you have the perfect set of skills, Minato said, who was sitting across from Naruto, with Hiruzen nodding on the side. Alright then, I guess I'll try it. So, sure, sign me up for the Anbu. And with that, Naruto was initiated. This was about midway through the 2-year time skip. Naruto very quickly rose in the ranks of the Anbu and gained recognition by not just the Anbu, but everybody who had ever met the tailed flash of Konoha. The only thing that people saw of him before their deaths were tails, almost like those of an animal, or even worse, a tailed beast. After just 1 month of doing missions inside the Anbu, after only joining 1 month prior, Naruto had become so recognized that he got his own Anbu team and became the captain. However, he did not stop there, and continued to amaze everyone with a 100% success rate on all of his missions, even going above and beyond. doing everything even imaginable, and doing them faster than anyone else could. So he became known as the strongest of all Anbu, most not even knowing of his very young age, as he masked his whole body, so he was unrecognizable, except for the tails that just seemed to appear out of nowhere whenever he appeared in a battle. They appeared, he killed people, and then they disappeared. He was truly a monster, a tailed beast. Back to present. Now Naruto was heading out to kill Hidan and Kakuzu. Well, he knew that Kakuzu could be killed, though he did not know of any way to kill Hidan, the truly immortal human, who had been blessed by the god Yashin himself. However, Kakuzu would be easy to fight. He just had multiple hearts that weren't even remotely human, but if you killed all of them, well, you can imagine what would happen to him. With that in mind, Naruto went in to battle as he saw those two around a campfire. It was already beginning to become darker. The sun had set about half an hour ago, and night was approaching soon. The two rogue shinobi were not thinking of battle or anything remotely similar, yet in a mere flash, Naruto appeared, a monster of Konoha. With 11 tails flashing in front of the two shinobi, Naruto, with a grin and 2 kunais in his hands, one in each. His hair grew long, because, by the way, Naruto did not have his Anbu mask, he just had the normal Anbu outfit, not the mask. "I've come here to collect you," Naruto said, and went in for battle without even waiting for a response. At his incredible entrance, Kakuzu was expecting Naruto to dash forward, so he was already somewhat prepared, though was not prepared for Naruto's insane speed. They had heard of Naruto. Well, not Naruto per se, but they'd heard of the tailed shinobi of Konoha, as once again, no one knew it was Naruto except for the Hokage, and a very few select others. So Kakuzu actually took quite some damage, as his shoulder was open and bleeding. Now Hidan rushed in and tried to hit Naruto with his scythe, then jumping back once more and trying to use his jutsu, which he was perfect for with his immortal body. But Naruto would not let him get any second of rest, so Naruto dashed forwards like in the beginning and punched Hidan in the stomach so hard he went flying 10 meters up, 30 feet if you're American, and 10 meters backwards, 30 feet if you're American. Hidan was going to be out of commission for a few seconds. In the meantime, Kakuzu regained his composure and now started fighting Naruto once more. Naruto now actually used his shuriken and kunai, which he had been holding in his hands. By the way, he was fighting with kunai in his hands, not even using them. Basically just with the back of his palm. Kind of insane if you ask me. So then Naruto actually used the weapons that he had ready, as he slit open a whole bunch of scars, or rather future scars, and made many scratches on Kakuzu's body, making him out of breath very quickly. His body was stinging even though they had only been fighting for less than a minute now. Now Hidan was back in the game, as now Hidan and Kakuzu were both fighting Naruto at the same time, but then once more Hidan tried to activate his jutsu. Naruto would not let that happen as he threw his kunai right at Hidan, though he blocked it with his spinning scythe. But Naruto appeared right behind Hidan, stabbing him through the back, though Naruto, of course, knew that Hidan would recover. He is immortal after all. Now going back to Kakuzu, who he now wanted to completely eliminate, hitting him, smashing him in the ground with his 11 tails, which were all beating down on a single man. It made a big dent in the ground, almost as if a crater appeared from a meteor. But then there was Kakuzu laying inside it, unconscious and beaten to a bloody pulp. And now Naruto, with the kunai inside his hands, Naruto was slowly walking over to Kakuzu and was about to finish off all of his hearts, and he had already gotten 2 during their fight. However, Hidan got back and tried to hit Naruto from behind, similar to how Naruto did, but it simply didn't work. Naruto blocked Hidan's sight with just his forearm, as he didn't need any special jutsu or taijutsu. Simple punches were enough to defeat Hidan. Really, his whole power was just immortality, and if he could just take care of him, it was basically like fighting a child with infinite energy. Really not that hard. So now, Naruto made a few clones, including even Tailed Beast style and Shadow clones, both which he had learned and mastered over the years, who were currently fighting Hidan, as it was basically an endless battle. Hidan could never win, but he could also never lose. And then Naruto finished off Kakuzu with no issue. Naruto decided that he had to bring Hidan back to the village, as there was no feasible way to eliminate him otherwise. Naruto did, and he brought Hidan back as a prisoner of war with the Akatsuki. And with that, no casualties had happened. The only one happening was of course Kakuzu, though Naruto actually brought his dead body to Konoha as well, as a surprise gift. He went to Minato's office, as there was currently Mitsumori, who had taken on a Genin team, reporting their mission to Minato. Mitsumori was definitely a prodigy and became a Jonin teacher at a very, very young age, actually becoming one of the first of the Konoha 12 or 15 to become a Jonin, and then a sensei afterwards too. The youngest sensei, the youngest Jonin sensei to have ever existed in all of Konoha. Kind of an achievement if you ask me. Anyways, so Naruto arrived there, but then noticing the 3 young Genin, he decided not to show a dead body and a war prisoner, so he came back a little bit later, and gave Minato basically a show of hand to show what was going on. Vaguely. Of course not the exact details, but basically saying, I'm gonna come back later to tell you. So now Naruto went down to the basically playground near the Hokage Tower, waiting for Mitsumori and his Genin team to finish their mission report, and then he would go upstairs again. He sees Mitsumori going downstairs, as he gives him a nod, signifying that they're done. However, right after that, the Hokage's secretary actually goes to get Naruto, even though he already, could have gone alone. So Naruto now opens the door to the Hokage's office, as he then reports. He uses a jutsu which allowed him to seal or store any item, any physical item that is, and took out first a body. It was that of Hidan, currently in the formation known as the Akatsuki, or, he used to be. Minato gasped, as immediately 10 Anbu jumped in the room, wanting to protect and jump in for the Hokage. But Hidan, he was not looking great. He had a seal on his face and chest, and unknown to the shinobi in the room, except for Naruto, he was also currently in a genjutsu, trapped in there, so not good for him. And then Naruto took out another object out of his pocket dimension. This was the head of Kakuzu, the man who had lived over 100 years and had even fought Hashirama Senju, though did lose. 3 of the Anbu went forward to check if the, head was cut off from the body, and Naruto assured them that it was, then pointing at Hidan once again, who was unconscious. He is alive though, just saying, and he is not really killable, as far as I know at least, so do with him whatever you want. This one's already dead, pointing at Kakuzu. Naruto, what did you do? I got the idea that I should actually start fighting the Akatsuki because, they're kind of a threat to the village and it would probably be good. Especially after the Gara incident, I just thought that it'd be quicker if I went and tried to take care of it, and well, it was pretty successful if you ask me. Well, I can see that it was successful, but how did you even do that alone? Naruto, these are high Jonin level fighters, if not even Kage. What are you doing? Well, they were kind of overrated. I mean, they really weren't that strong in my opinion. So, yeah, do with them whatever you want. I'll go fight the next guys, I guess. But then Minato turned serious and teleported right in front of Naruto, who was about to leave the room once more. Naruto, this is not a game. This is war. Or a battle, or whatever you might call it. But it's not fun. Is that clear? Yeah, sure. Why do you think I killed him? Come on. Think. Think. So, if you don't find this a game, why would you ever joke about fighting all of the Akatsuki alone? Well, because it's not a joke, I'm going to. Why else do you think I trained for 2 years? Come on. Now who's the one who's joking? Come on. And by the way, you know of some of my abilities, and that's not even all, so why would you even doubt me? Naruto, there are Kage level fighters amongst them. Fighting even one of them would be a challenge for you. Fighting all of them at the same time is suicide. If you think that, you're heavily underestimating me as well as our opponent. You have no idea what they're after, or what they're even doing. But then, Naruto suddenly left in a flash. But hid his chakra well enough that no one, even a sensing ninja, could not find him. He was walking through the village, head down, a little bit sad, but also somewhat tired of the day, as the evening was slowly starting to appear, and night sky filled the sunny day. Hi Naruto, I wasn't expecting to see you here, a very familiar voice said. Black hair, and definitely from the Uchiha clan. This was Shiro, Sasuke's sister. I heard you guys, and, well, my idiot brother, just finished a cool mission. So, how was it? Shiro didn't really know what to say as they hadn't seen each other in quite some time, and one of her only last memories with Naruto was him basically saving her whole team in the Chunin exams. But now she is above the rank of Chunin, so that doesn't truly matter. But still, it was a very kind gesture back in the day. To be honest, all that is kind of just gone already. The adrenaline's gone, the happiness is gone, and the sadness has arrived once more. Naruto, you sound depressed. You want to talk over with some ramen, perhaps? I know you like ramen, Shiro answered. Ramen! Yes, let's do it. Of course, guys, come on. Naruto still has an obsession over ramen. That's not even a question. Like, come on. Anyways, Shiro had to start every question and conversation that they had, as Naruto wasn't really good at talking, especially in his mood that he was now in. He felt so empty. He thought Minato would be proud of him, or at least say that it was a good thing that he did it, or something along the lines of that. And maybe he would even be hailed as a hero, though that was more of a dream that a child would have rather than a proud shinobi fighter. Still though, I'm not gonna give up, and I'm gonna defeat the Akatsuki no matter what, Naruto thought in his head, but didn't say it out loud, of course. He didn't want Shiro to get wrapped up in this. So, Shiro, how have things been going along? Are you still connected with Mitsumori? Really, Naruto? After this long time? That's the question you ask? Yeah, I guess, but not in that way that you're thinking. He has a lot to do as a genuine sensei, so I just kind of do my own thing. I was a normal Chunin and then became a Jonin for a while, but that was a little bit boring, so I took some time to train and find new people to make connections, and I even traveled a little bit, but even that got boring afterwards. But now you're here, and suddenly everything seems interesting. I like that. I like that about you, Naruto. You're always in for a surprise. You know, you're really not like your brother, Shiro, Naruto said. I know. Of course I'm much better. What did you think? Sasuke is a loser compared to me, and he's pretty strong. But of course, I'm better. Always, Shiro said in a braggy tone. But she was somewhat right. Her power was definitely not to be underestimated, and she could definitely hold herself in a fight. Now, whether she could compete with Naruto, that's a different thing. But could she fight Sasuke? Probably, yeah. They never tried it, though. Ah! A girlish scream was heard not that much farther than Naruto currently was at. Out of a shop, an old man with long spiky hair could be seen being thrown out by a middle-aged woman. Actually, a little younger. About in her mid-30s. Naruto slowly walked over, as he said, "Really, Jiraiya? Still at this? You know, you're kind of getting older," Naruto said, careful not to hurt Jiraiya's feelings. "Naruto, you know this pervert?" Shiro said, in a disgusted tone. "Yeah, he's a character. I know him. He's a little bit weird, but once you get to know him, he's not that bad." "Really?" Shiro didn't believe him. "Naruto, this is not the encouragement that I need right now. I need research for my next book, you know? I'm kind of on a tight schedule, so if you help me, that'd be appreciated." "Jiraiya, I've told you this and I'm gonna tell you every time. I'm not gonna help you, ever." Naruto is such a kind soul, Shiro thought. So anyways, introductions are in order. Shiro, this is Jiraiya. Jiraiya, this is Shiro. Naruto, you have a girlfriend, I see. Interesting. As Jiraiya takes out a sketchbook and writes something down. She's not my girlfriend, okay? And what are you even writing down? Jiraiya, delete that right now or I'll burn you with a flame. Is that clear? Relax, Naruto, please. Please? Anyways, what are you even doing in this village? Cause, like, you're not really doing anything shinobi-wise, so... What are you doing, old man? Actually, I'm about to go on a mission and I just wanted to tell Minato. Okay then. What are you going to do? Is it a hard mission? You could definitely say that. It's an S-rank mission to find the leader of the Akatsuki. Naruto's jaw dropped. The leader? Where is he? Well, I suspect him to be in the village hidden in the rain, but I'll have to look for myself to be sure. And you can handle yourself in a fight? Shiro asked. Wow, I'm not really that old, okay? Can I go along with you? Naruto asked. Nah, kid, I got this. Whatever you say, old man. Jiraiya then walked to the Hokage's office, telling him that he was going to do a mission to find the leader of the Akatsuki, and it would maybe take a few days at max. Minato didn't really want him to go, as it would be very, very dangerous, and he asked if any backup shinobi or Anbu, or even just people watching the fight, should be there. Not really fight, just being attentive to Jiraiya. He's not an easy person. Nah, I got this, Jiraiya said, as he then walked away into a fading light. Naruto? Naruto? It's way too early for that. Oh, I overslept. Oh no. So Naruto quickly gets dressed after being sleeping for over 12 hours straight, and then opens the door to see Shiro standing there, along with Sakura. Whoa, what are you guys doing here? This early? Really? I mean, I get I'm popular, but I'm not that popular. Shut up, Naruto. We're not here for you, really. It's an order from the Hokage. What, this early? What could he want now? Really, Minato? Whatever. He probably got a problem with paperwork again, as he always does. Fine, let's go. Just give me a second and I'll be right there. So Naruto just prepared himself brushed his teeth, and then he went along with the two girls to the Hokage's office. But when walking through the door was open, and the atmosphere around the room was sad, depressed, and somewhat shinobi-like at the same time. Not shinobi-like. Naruto, you've finally come. So what is this about anyways? Naruto now seemed a little bit concerned, feeling the weird energy that was coming off of this room. There was others in here too, such as Tsunade the Slug Sanin, Kakashi, Mitsumori, and a few others. Naruto, we are sad to report that, well, you remember Jiraiya leaving 3 days ago, right? Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't I? He's not that bad once you get to meet him. I always say that. And you know it's true. Of course. I know that. But, well, Jiraiya is... Minato, you don't need to do that, Kakashi said. Naruto, what he's trying to say is, Jiraiya has fallen in battle. As the room went quiet, Naruto's head slowly went downwards, not blinking, almost as if he was about to bow to someone, though his body did not change. His hands felt cold, his eyes became slits instead of normal pupils, and had a purplish iris. What did you say? Minato then responded, Naruto, Jiraiya has died. Nothing happened. It was 20 seconds later. Naruto clenched his fists, now yelling at the Hokage, saying that it was his fault that Jiraiya had even gone on this mission, and that he should have stopped him, or gone along with him, or anything. And he was the reason that Jiraiya had died. Though no one responded, and the room went quiet once again. It is no one's fault, Naruto boy, an old toad said that was sitting in the corner of the room. Who are you? I'm part of Jiraiya's summoning jutsu of the Toad Mountain, Mount Myoboku. It's nice to meet you, young Naruto. Likewise, but not on these conditions. As Naruto, with an even more depressed tone than anyone else, turned around and slowly exited the room, walking through the Hokage's office, down the stairs, down to the streets of Konoha, and walked around the village for hours and hours, until finally sitting down on a bench, with tears flooding down his eyes. Naruto did have a somewhat good relationship with Jiraiya, as he had actually become almost like an uncle or a grandfather for Naruto. He was a funny guy and actually did teach Naruto a few things about the world and even some jutsu. But now he was gone. Then the person that came to Naruto was Shiro Uchiha, with 2 popsicles in her hand, giving one to Naruto, soothing him. Naruto, do you think that old man would want to see you cry right now? Come on. He was a fighter, just like you. So now you gotta be a fighter, and not cry. I know. Naruto tried to cheer himself up, though it seemed hard. I will kill all of the Akatsuki, especially their leader, to revenge Jiraiya. That pervert. No, that sage. The Toad Sage. He was a good guy, and he did not deserve this. The Akatsuki shall pay! Shiro was getting scared at the ki that Naruto was emitting, as it was evil, like that of a demon. And about 15 Anbu arrived, as well as Minato, Kakashi, Asuma, Kurenai, Mitsumori, Sasuke, and a few others. Well, the strongest in Konoha. Naruto was emitting such bloodlust and coloring intent that it completely paralyzed Shiro, and she had trouble breathing. The Anbu were ready to attack out of instinct, not even knowing what just happened, as they didn't even consciously go to Naruto. It just drew them to Naruto out of pure strength. Meanwhile, this was happening in the village hidden in the rain. Pain, the supposed leader of the Akatsuki, as well as his subordinate and assistant Konan, who was also very powerful, were now heading towards Konoha, but still had some time, and were going to arrive in Konoha in about 1 week. However, they sensed that a strong fight was going to happen, and that's why they prepared a little bit extra than they would have. They knew of people like Minato, Mitsumori, the young proficient prodigy, and some of the Uchiha who were not to be messed with either, including Sasuke, just as young as Mitsumori, though having impeccable control of the Sharingan, similar to his older brother. Now that the Akatsuki are on the move, or rather the leader, Naruto is preparing himself for a big battle, potentially village devastating battle. He gears up physically and prepares himself mentally, also going to Mitsumori and talking to Kurama, his true father, one last time before this battle, if anything was to happen to the Jinchuriki, or even Naruto, if that ever comes to be. During this 1 week between the time when Naruto found out about Jiraiya's death and the time when the Akatsuki captain came, Jiraiya was not mentioned by anyone, and Naruto did not talk or even see anyone. He wasn't seen in the village anywhere at any time. No one could sense him, no one could see him, or heard anything of him. He was a ghost. He was gone. Until it came to the day, village defenses were on the max, everyone was on the lookout, and they had all been on high tension for the last couple of days. They knew the Akatsuki wouldn't attack right away, but they definitely expected it maximum a week after. Right now, it's exactly 7 days after the news of the Toads came that Jiraiya had fallen in battle, when suddenly an explosion is heard at the village border, at one of the guard towers. On the view of some Chunin, now a ginger-haired person does a summoning jutsu, but instead of having an actual animal appear, 5 different similar-looking gingers appear, and they quickly spread out, one of them doing an actual summoning jutsu this time, where devastating beasts come out. One 3-headed fox, or whatever it was. It was a monster, and the other could not even be comprehended. Each one with the size of a tailed beast. Not quite, of course, but they were definitely up there. A fight broke out, as most of the village now started fighting. Some Anbu took on the summonings, and Minato immediately went in for battle, though first made a strategy with his subordinate ninjas. He was going to rush out and try to take out as many of them as possible. However, he quickly noticed that 10 years, actually more than 10 years, of not war had made him kind of soft. Not soft, but he was not the same as he used to be. This time of peace, he had not trained that much, and therefore his combative abilities decreased, as well as his age, and his prime was slowly fading away. He wasn't old, of course, but he wasn't in his 20s anymore, if you know what I mean. Now Minato was only fighting one of the Pains, as they had called them, or rather, as Pain himself had called them, and there were multiple of them. They didn't know which one was the real one, or even if any of them were the real ones. But they all had what's known as the legendary Eye of the Gods, the Rinnegan, used by the Sage of the Six Paths long, long ago to save the world from evil and create the ninja kind. The person Minato was fighting was tricky, as soon as Minato teleported to fight close combat, the person pushed him away, or when Minato was trying to do something else, like power up a jutsu, the enemy pulled him closer. He seemed to control the battlefield and everyone fighting in it, until some people tried to support Minato in the fight and came along, but they got pushed away and crushed on the ground. Minato was now getting angry, seeing more and more devastation throughout his village that he had been keeping safe for many, many years now. Now, even if Minato wasn't seeing it, the Akatsuki were actually being overwhelmed. However, this was not it. There was more than just the pains. Slowly but surely, more and more chaos came to the battlefield. First, it started raining paper, and multiple of the same person, which were paper clones, arrived on the scene, and more of them seemed to appear out of thin air. Then a few different fighters appeared as well, most notably a guy that had blue skin, and his face resembled that of a shark. This was Kisame, a loyal rogue shinobi. Well, loyal to whoever he trusted, if anywhere, or any time, they would be in good hands. Now the Konoha forces were slowly being pushed back, but then backup on Konoha's side arrived too. Most notably, it was part of the Uchiha clan. As for example, there was Itachi, Shisui, and Sasuke, three extremely strong, and while still young, very experienced, powerful fighters. Sasuke, along with his brother, fought Kisame, as Shisui with his speed was trying to trick Konan, the woman made of paper. Buildings were being destroyed left, right, and center. Trees were being shattered and thrown around. And after mere seconds, a playground, which had been not even touched, was completely destroyed. Somebody came to Minato's rescue as well. It was his own son, Mitsumori. At first, Minato told him to run away, but he wouldn't. So, father and son tagged along to fight the Akatsuki leader, who had killed Mitsumori's father's sensei, the fourth Hokage sensei, Jiraiya the Gallant. Speaking of the devil, he was nowhere to be seen. Quite literally, nowhere. People were afraid that he had completely left the village and possibly even the land of fire. They hadn't heard anything of him for over a week now. However, then 5 of the 6 Pain's bodies collapsed in an instant without any crucial blows from a battle. They just collapsed. Then one of them, the one fighting Minato and Mitsumori, started flying up into the air with his robe dangling in the wind of Konoha. Dear Hokage, you have lived in peace for way too long, and you shall experience what war is like once again. This world shall know pain. Shinra Tensei! The same technique that had been used on Minato and Mitsumori prior was now being used, but at over 100 times the power. It was devastating, like a bomb. It couldn't be compared to a hurricane or a natural disaster of any sort. It had its own class. It was the push of the gods, a technique only used by a true monster. As it traveled, it started in basically right in the middle of Konoha and spread out further and further and further up until the very edge, where buildings were broken started cramming against the Konoha wall. However, certain parts of the village did survive, and here's why. Number 1, you had the Uchiha boys, who were in fact using their Mangekyo Sharingan abilities for a Susanoo to form, which could absorb at least parts of the shockwave, and so buildings might not be completely intact, but they weren't even close to as broken and were still standing pretty well. Now yes, Shisui has a Susanoo in this, okay? It's canon here, it's canon here. Doesn't matter if on the original, he has a canon Susanoo here. Alright, he just trained. Sasuke does too, by the way. And a little bit of the shockwave Kakashi Hatake was actually able to absorb, as he used his Kamui ability from his quote-unquote borrowed Sharingan to completely annihilate the shockwave that was heading towards him. Therefore, about 3 buildings who were behind him survived. It wasn't much, but it was something. But since that was very exhausting for him, she couldn't do it again, at least for a few minutes. A lot of the village was destroyed. Many houses broken, people hurt, people injured, people dead. People were stuck under rubble, trying to breathe, trying to survive, looking for help. But there were a limited amount of people who with medical training in the hospital which was able to survive, as there were quite a few guards on it. It was one of the most important places in the entire village after all. It did survive, but it was already at max capacity. And even had 20 people on top of that, they were completely understaffed for a situation like this. Sakura was currently healing someone, an injured shinobi. Hinata was staring at the dead, the injured, and the completely broken village, and Shiro, with a depressed look, was wondering where everyone was. Her family, her friends, as well as Naruto. Where had he even been for the last few days? And how was he coping? She hoped he was alright and not mixed up with any of this, or, well, worse. But at that very moment, Naruto arrived on the battlefield with a big puff of smoke. It was Naruto, but he wasn't alone. There were 9 monsters behind him, as well as a man beside him. This was none other than the Sannin, Orochimaru. For some reason, Orochimaru was standing next to him. Perhaps Naruto had been manipulated, but that wouldn't be possible. Naruto would never succumb to something like that. And finally, the smoke and dust cleared, and Naruto was visible, with 9, and if you're counting Orochimaru, 10 monsters standing near him. Naruto looked angry, however, and already had 12 of his tails activated and ready for a fight, even already matured to a physical level, which means game was on. His chakra cloak glowing bright as ever, with his chakra and ki filling the entire village. He spread it out, but there was just so much. It thickened the air, with some people having trouble to breathe for a few seconds, but then adjust slowly. But Naruto was careful not to harm the citizens, as too much chakra would actually hurt them, especially the ones in the hospital who were already on the brink of death. The man who had just devastated the Leaf Village then came down towards Naruto, back with the 6 bodies. Well, 5 others. These were the 6 pagans of the Akatsuki. And a few seconds later, Kisame and Konan arrived there too. 2 very powerful fighters. Along with the leader of the Akatsuki, this would not be an easy fight. Orochimaru was about to head in for battle, but Naruto stopped him. Then 2 of the summonings that had been summoned earlier arrived and tried to fight Naruto too, but the tailed beast went forward, and the 9 of them absolutely annihilated them. The first one-taileds being able to bury them under sand, choking them, and stealing their chakra, Matatabi using flames to burn them alive, Kurama with incredible chakra, who was actually able to do a few jutsu. Nothing crazy, but, you know. And of course the rest of them who weren't to be messed with around either. I got this, Naruto said proudly to Orochimaru. Whatever you say, boy. Now go get him. Orochimaru actually stepped back as he jumped backwards about 20 meters. 60 feet if you're American. And Naruto slowly started walking towards the Akatsuki, then started jogging, then started running, then faster and faster and faster until he blitzed one of them. He stood right behind Kisame and decked him in the neck, pushing him into the ground, and Kisame slid with his face dragging on the floor for 10 meters. 30 feet if you're American, and Kisame would have to take a few seconds to recover. It was a surprise attack, and a strong one at that. Then Naruto went for Conan. With his pure hands, he cut through any paper that she sent at him, and even when she tried to choke him with paper, Naruto simply used his chakra and aura to push the papers away and let them fly up into the air, making them completely disappear from sight. Then he decked Conan in the stomach, making her gasp for air, hit her on the chin, and then kicked her into the side, making her fly away too. Then Pain himself, or rather all of the Pains, try to get to Naruto, but with pure martial arts, Naruto was able to dodge, block, and even attack all of them at once, and completely resist the pushing and pulling by using chakra to stay on the ground as he was with his control. And he did all of this while still fighting. Naruto was above the level of any Kage at this point, above any of the Akatsuki. He was a true god of shinobi. A shinobi no kami. Now Kisame recovered and started fighting Naruto too, however he took him on just as easily as Pain and Conan. And with that, Conan arrived too, and now Naruto is fighting in a 3v1. The tailed beasts were done fighting the two summonings, but they didn't fight with Naruto. They started watching him, similar to Orochimaru. Naruto got this, they thought. Orochimaru had an interesting yet suspicious smile. A smirk of power and gratitude at the same time. Flashback. Naruto, after finding out of Jiraiya's death, actually went to Orochimaru after 2 days and told him, as he thought that Orochimaru should know. And then also told him that the village would likely get attacked and perhaps even destroyed if they're not careful. Orochimaru appreciated what Naruto told him and offered a little bit of a quick training, mostly just for his new type of chakra that he could get, which was nature chakra, and he would get this in the form of sage energy. Naruto agreed, as he'd never really used it. He only knew it from Jiraiya, but had never any reason to learn it up until now, because now he has to actually protect something dear to him, the village and the people he loved in it. So they did a quick training, but because Naruto had basically infinite chakra to train for days on end, Naruto trained for 24 hours a day for 3 days straight, completely mastering sage energy, and especially he was able to use thousands of shadow clones and tailed beast style clones, which all gathered sage energy. And now he activated it during battle. Now we're back to present. Naruto jumped back, clenched his fists, which were on either side of his hip, and his eyes seemed to change. They already had one slit in it, but now they had two, making a cross, a plus-shaped eye, as Naruto's iris turned purple. Naruto now quickly, with one fast swoop, took out Conan as well as Kisame, decapitating Kisame and knocking Conan out completely, as she seemed like a smart person, so he would have to get information out of her. Kisame, however, would not give any information, so he just eliminated him now. Now the Pains was the only one to fight. Naruto rushed each one like a pinball machine, jumping from one to another, jumping through the air with his wind jump technique, as his speed was unmatched by even Shisui, and yes, Minato as well. Naruto's pure running and jumping speed was quite literally as fast as teleportation. His speed could not be compared to any shinobi, and he took out all of the Pains except for the one that had created the ginormous, godlike shockwave to destroy the Leaf Village. Then put his hand on the Pain's chest and basically sucked out its chakra, being able to search for the energy, as Naruto knew that there was something else, somebody controlling these bodies. He had sensed it during their short but intense battle, so Naruto now made his way over to the quote-unquote real Pain, as he was actually a little ways away, about 2 kilometers, 1.2 miles if you're American. But Naruto appeared there in a flash, in less than 3 seconds. He was truly at godlike speeds. However, Nagato at this point was already laying on the ground, looking up at the sky. The paper tree is gone, as Conan had no power over it when she was unconscious. All of the pains were easily annihilated, and now Nagato is likely to be killed. Naruto would not simply kill him, as having heard of some of the abilities of the Rinnegan from Orochimaru himself, he asked for one final wish before Nagato's death. He would make it peaceful and fast if he did comply. Nagato asked what this would be, but kind of figured on his own. He was to revive everyone that has died in the battle between the Akatsuki and the Konoha Leaf Village, which only lasted less than 30 minutes. Really, it only lasted like 10 minutes, but it felt like a lifetime for some of the shinobi in it, as well as some of the citizens. So everybody that died would come back to life, and the ones injured were healed beyond any medical possibility. They are back to perfect health, some even better than they were before, but with that, Nagato passed out from chakra strain. However, he asked one more thing, and that was for Naruto to take his eyes. Naruto agreed, as he knew he would be able to use them because he had Samotsutsuki's chakra, being the combined son of all the tailed beasts, therefore kind of the grandson of Hagoromo, so he had better control of it than any normal human could, so he would be able to use it better and more efficiently than Nagato ever could. And of course Naruto has crazy amount of chakra, so even if he couldn't use it more efficiently, he won't die if he uses a certain jutsu. Anyways, now Naruto went back to the Leaf Village. That was still destroyed, though the people were in it were fine, as Naruto was caught red-handed by about 20 shinobi, 10 Anbu, as well as Itachi, Sasuke, Shiro, Shisui, Mitsumori, Sasuke, Kakashi, Asuma, Kurenai, Minato, and a few others, who were now all staring at the godlike being standing in front of them. Naruto, who they had known since he was less than 5 years old, was now a true god of shinobi, a shinobi no kami, stronger than any Hokage had ever been, as the Anbus bowed down to Naruto getting on their knees. He was a legendary Anbu after all, and Minato did actually spill the tea and tell all the Anbu that Naruto was their true leader, basically. He led the Anbu to a pretty big extent, so yeah. So now they all knew and praised Naruto, and all the Jonin did too, as they lowered their heads, and even Minato showed sign of respect. Then Minato asked if Naruto needed any help, and Naruto was actually slowly getting sleepy due to the chakra strain it had put on his body and brain and mind of taking new eyes, especially the Rinnegan, and his body would have to basically absorb him for now, so he was getting very, very tired very quick, but Minato was able to catch him quick enough, as he is the yellow flash of the leaf anyways, and then carried him on his back, along with the rest of the shinobi, basically protecting Naruto at this point. They got back to the village, getting to it as the wall that had been separating the forest and Leaf Village was gone, but what they saw was not unhappy people. They saw people with hope, cheering on Naruto as they'd heard of his endeavors that saved the village, that saved everyone. Naruto was celebrated throughout the village, but yet he had a feeling that he wasn't quite done. He followed his instincts to the Akatsuki hideout, which he had of course located in his past 2 years. He had located all of the Akatsuki's hideouts, and then went there. There, he saw Obito and Black Zetsu. By the way, this was still the same evening that he defeated Pain. He kind of sneaked away before a big party ceremony was going to honor Naruto's victory, which would also give him a medal from the Hokage personally. But as said, Naruto slipped away as he fought the rest of the Akatsuki. First it was Obito along with Black Zetsu, but he wasn't much of a fighter, and a few others, but they weren't crazy strong. Of course, Obito activated his Mangekyo Sharingan, which could be a challenge, but Naruto activated his Rinnegan and used one pull to actually pull Obito to Naruto, and then he could punch him, which completely broke his ribcage, which would later on kill him. It was very hard even to use that one technique of the Rinnegan, but it was pretty cool. Black Zetsu was not a challenge as he wasn't a fighter, and Naruto made sure to delete his entire presence, as he had heard from the Tailed Beast that Black Zetsu was the only reason that the Tailed Beast had been hated for this long, and that Hagoromo was basically betrayed by his sons, and Indra had been corrupted in the first place. Black Zetsu was the reason for all of this, so now he was finally gone, and the world could rest in peace. The Akatsuki had been defeated by one single man, one shinobi, a legend, a god of shinobi, Naruto of the Tailed Beast, form of descendant of the Otsutsuki, and savior of not just the Hidden Leaf Village, but savior of the world. And that was the legend of Naruto, the Gallant. He later married Shiro. Of course, first he had to get back to the ceremony that he almost completely missed, but he ended up just being 3 minutes late, and had to explain everything. After that, after only 2 years, Naruto did not just become close, in a relationship with Shiro, they were already married, and after that, it would still be some time, but after that they would actually have 2 children. Mitsumori became the 5th Hokage at the age of only 25 years old. However, Naruto was never disrespected and never looked down upon for anything he did. He was a true legend, a savior of the world, and a friend of anyone. Anyone who even had the opportunity would help him out in any way possible, and his wedding was celebrated throughout the whole world. And that was the story of what if Naruto was a tailed beast. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. The series was fun. I truly hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.